Chapter 448. The Southern Summer Central State Laboratory had a piece of exciting news. The source energy computer had made a breakthrough. This was the most exciting thing for Chu Tian recently. Miracle Commerce had experienced several breakthroughs in its development over the past year, creating the source energy weapons, the space warehouse, and the spiritual world. Now, whether it was technology or production, it was facing a bottleneck. With Chu Tian's knowledge in this era, he could only use the crudest method to realize a part of it before falling into a stagnant state. Now that the source energy computer had been successfully developed, it would instantly break the current ceiling and increase the potential of Miracle Commerce by a large amount, so it could be said that this was a very important matter. The source energy matrix is not stable, so we can't move it for now. What do you plan on doing? Meng Qingwu had participated in the source energy computer research before. Although she didn't know what use the source energy computer had, the source energy computer project could be said to be the project that took the longest time in Miracle Commerce. This was also one of the projects that Chu Tian had prepared the earliest. This complicated, troublesome, and strenuous project, if it wasn't worth it, Chu Tian would never do it. Young miss, go to the gnome's laboratory. I want to borrow their remaining spatial crystals. Chu Tian made his decision. Nangong will contact Yun Tianhe and Gu Qianxiu. I will send the blueprints and materials for the transport tower to the warehouse and have them prepare it in Central State City. Vivian will personally make a trip there and reach Central State as soon as possible. She will build the transport tower for Southern Xia, making it easier for me to go there. Alright. The transport tower was very convenient. Once there was a transport tower, the two places would be very close and they could teleport at any time. However, the transport tower not only needed the incomparably precious eyes of the star, it also needed large amounts of spatial materials. Miracle Commerce didn't have many of these rare materials, and even the gnomes didn't have many in their several hundred years of storage. When Miracle City's transport tower was built, Chu Tian had already used most of the gnome's spatial attributed materials. Now that he was in a rush to build the second transport tower, Chu Tian had no choice but to borrow the gnome's spatial crystals. If these things were left in the hands of the gnomes, they would at most be used to make some storage equipment. It would be better to lend them to Chu Tian, and Chu Tian would just give them a space warehouse in the future. Everyone immediately began to carry out the order. Not good. Meng Yingying hurriedly ran in. The forest tribe is causing trouble in the city. Their leader is Arnold. We don't know how to deal with them. Quickly go and take a look. What? What were these guys doing? Under the Miracle Castle, several chiefs brought a large group of people to protest. The newly recruited guards of the city lord's castle were in a dilemma. On one hand, many of these people were from their tribes, so it wasn't good to directly fall out with them. Arnold, you fucking dare to rebel? Arnold saw the angry Chu Tian and immediately shrunk his neck. He never thought that he would draw out Chu Tian. After hesitating for a few seconds, he loudly said, "We are not rebelling, we are only fighting for our legal rights. We want to see Miracle Bank's chairman." Miracle Bank was established and Meng Qingwu was the chairman and Dolores was the vice chairman. Arnold and the others did not want to see Meng Qingwu, rather they wanted to ask Dolores for an explanation. Why do you want to see her? Because that seductive fox Dolores is unfair. Arnold's large nostrils released steam. He looked very angry. Recently, she has been giving large amounts of primeval stones from the bank to the people outside, but she is not willing to lend us a single primeval stone. Why is that? It's just because we had some grudges before. This is clearly using her position to take revenge. We don't accept this. That's right. Outsiders can borrow money from the bank, but we can't. Our tribe will send out 500 elites to become Miracle City's regular soldiers. The chiefs were all filled with excitement, like they had suffered a large loss. This made Chu Tian feel like his head was about to explode. The so-called not worrying about scarcity, but worrying about inequality. Before miracle banking was established, everyone didn't think much of it, but now that miracle banking was established, several tens of thousands of source stones were used to lend money, but they were all sent to distant tribes and small towns. These locals tried to apply, but they were all rejected. The brains of the forest natives weren't that good, so Dolores's attitude was immediately suspected of having ulterior motives. They remembered that the Fox clan would often clash with the nearby Minotaurs and Tiger people, so they naturally thought that Dolores was abusing her position to take revenge. They didn't know the city lord was in trouble. Actually, it wasn't just the locals that were complaining, even the citizens were feeling dissatisfied. For example, Chu Tian had recruited large amounts of elites from the forest to form an army, giving them special treatment and giving them stable positions. On the other hand, the citizens didn't receive the same treatment, so there were many gnomes that were dissatisfied with the city lord. Could this be blamed on Dolores and Chu Tian? The surrounding tribes were born around Miracle City, so they were all in the same sphere of influence. Dolores' large amounts of loans was not only to develop the bank, but also to create a larger commercial area, allowing the Miracle Shopping Center to cover a part of the area. Chu Tian's conscription was to stabilize the surrounding tribes and locals, letting everyone have a stable life. He also gave the locals large amounts of jobs to stabilize their lives, which was beneficial to the development of the area. But facing the dissatisfaction of the citizens, Chu Tian could only announce a large conscription. The citizens had to make up a certain proportion of the conscripted soldiers. Chu Tian asked, "What are you taking loans for?" "What else can we do?" Arnold confidently said, "The new area is about to open. We need to save money to fight the evil dragon. There have been more and more advertisements recently, and we can see the evil dragon's abilities. It doesn't seem like a fellow that is easy to deal with, so what's wrong with preparing a bit more source stones?" Did the locals only pursue this much? Chu Tian almost spat out a mouthful of blood. What did he think they needed source stones for? Chu Tian asked, "Do you know that loans need to be mortgaged? Miracle Bank will give out source stones with interest, and if you can't pay it back, the item will be confiscated." "Isn't it just mortgaging? We can take it out," several rich tribes said without any hesitation. "We're not afraid, we just want source stones." These locals had to take out a loan. "Everyone, please listen to me." Chu Tian knit his brows and thought about it. Then he suddenly said, "Miracle Bank was not created to earn a large sum of money, rather it was created to promote the development of the forest. The source stones we give out are not just to earn interest, but also to increase the value of the source stones in the forest, creating a win-win situation for the entire forest. Not only do we lend out source stones, we also need to ensure that the lender receives more benefits. Otherwise, wouldn't this loan be a blood-sucking method?" The locals were confused. "What do you mean?" "My meaning is that if you want to apply for a loan from Miracle Bank, then you have to take action. We only encourage business loans at this stage. We don't support personal loans or tribe loans for pleasure." Arnold had an unhappy expression. "The Minotaurs don't know how to do business." "Who said you have to do business to start a business?" Chu Tian clapped his hands. "Inging map." Meng Inging quickly opened a large forest map. Chu Tian stood in front of the large map and pointed at the Minotaur Valley as he said, "The Minotaur Valley is rich in ore deposits and the Minotaurs are strong, so why don't they make a mine? Miracle City will welcome a period of rapid development, and not only will the ore sell well, the price will also increase. Isn't this a business opportunity? The Minotaurs can use the ore as an excuse to bring in Miracle Commerce's investment. We can make a Minotaur mine together, and wouldn't the Minotaurs have an endless source of income like this?" Arnold felt this was reasonable. Borrowing money wasn't a long-term plan. The Minotaurs were already so poor that they only had their underwear left, so they would only become poorer the more they borrowed, never having a day to turn around. It was better to teach a man to fish than to fish. Miracle Commerce would work with the Minotaurs to make a mine. Miracle Commerce would provide transportation, mining tools, various technologies, and sales channels. The Minotaurs would only need to be in charge of mining and refining, so they would have a large income in the future. Chu Tian pointed at another area and said, "There is a very rare wood near this ogre tribe. This wood itself is a level 3 material and the entire forest is filled with it. You really don't know the treasure in front of you. We can also work with the ogres to make a lumberyard. This place is suitable for farming. This place is suitable for farming." The center of the Forest of Chaos was rich in resources. Even if Chu Tian randomly dug a hole, he could find a crystal mine that could be mined for 50 years. The rich resources were enough to make the entire forest rich. Look, this forest is rich in resources, there are treasures everywhere. Why do you need to worry about a few source stones in the bank? Chu Tian pointed out a large area on the map. I plan to open a forest industrial park here, and the various tribes can invest with miracle commerce. Those with money will contribute money, those with power will contribute labor, those with technology will contribute technology, those with resources will contribute resources, and those with channels will contribute channels. We will all split the profits and everyone will become rich together, so why do we need to harm each other over a small matter? Right. The locals were all excited. Miracle Commerce's space warehouse was no longer a secret. With the rich local resources and Miracle Commerce's channels, it was enough for everyone to become rich, no longer needing to worry about things like famine. Chu Tian spoke for a long time until his saliva was almost dry, finally convincing the locals to leave. He had only provided a preliminary idea. As for the specific plan, it was the young Miss business. This was something Chu Tian would not worry about at all. The forest was still very chaotic. The citizens, locals, and various powers were all mixed together. Only a patient and wise manager like the young Miss would be able to organize everything. Chu Tian was afraid anyway. Chu Tian, you're truly amazing, actually tricking these barbaric and unreasonable fellows. Tricking? Is this called tricking? Chu Tian rolled his eyes. If we want the area to be stable, we can only make everyone rich. This is something we have to do sooner or later, it's not just talk. I really don't know what Miracle City will become in the future. Meng Yingying looked at the silent and empty area with an emotional sigh. Vivian will need a few days to go to Southern Xia to build the transport tower. Do you have any other plans? Of course, we can't just directly go to Southern Xia. We need to go to a place to collect some things before we go back. Chapter 449. The basin where they fought the Lich Dragon had already been sealed by the gnomes. Although the earth-shattering battle had passed for a while, the entire area was still covered in a thick death aura. Several dozen miles of vegetation had withered and there were still undead wandering around. Whether it was Miracle City or the locals of other places, they were not interested in this place at all. The gnome Great Elder Clark had brought people in to dig, finally finding a space filled with strong death energy. This should be an ancient undead ruin. The Lich had built the altar and array on top of the ruins, gathering the death energy that had been brewing for tens of thousands of years, finally condensing it into a terrifying energy that could destroy the entire city. If it wasn't for Chu Tian stopping them in time, Miracle City would have already turned into a death zone. Chu Tian brought Yingying, the little fox, the 18 divine servants, and the 10 fox clan priests into the ruins. Everyone be careful. Chu Tian turned around and made a gesture. He looked into the deep underground space and said, "This place is filled with all kinds of dangerous undead." The Fox clan priests were all confused. Why did Chu Tian come here for no reason? Then again, he didn't lack experts by his side, so why did he choose the demonic god religion's priests? The demonic god religion's priests were not strong in battle, so the Fox clan's main value to Miracle City was beast taming and business. Damn, why does this place look so dark? Meng Yingying followed Chu Tian into the underground world. She felt her body turn cold, like there was ice water pouring into her pores. There are rotten bones all over the ground, it's just like a large tomb. What are you doing here? Are there hidden treasures here? Chu Tian revealed a laugh. Take a guess. Meng Yingying gave a snort. Clark had already brought people to explore the undead ruins, but because it was very dangerous and the negative energy was too strong, the team had to leave after entering a bit, so they didn't have much information to gather. Chu Tian was walking at the front with his sword drawn. The little fox was lying on his shoulder, sucking in large mouthfuls of energy. The death energy around them was sucked away, relieving the pressure on them. The entire underground world was like a huge ancient tomb. The skeletons of the ancient creatures, under some kind of powerful force, actually formed spiraling bone pillars. It was these pillars that firmly supported the space. Chu Tian keenly sensed a powerful energy fluctuation. The entire ruin was not simply supported by a physical structure. It had formed some kind of profound and powerful energy field that enveloped the entire tomb. That was why it had not been damaged even after tens of millions of years. Even though the battle in the basin was extremely fierce, this place did not collapse in the slightest. Hey, when the time comes, you tell me, what exactly is in this broken place? Meng Yingying did not finish her words when her eyes suddenly widened and her snow-white teeth chattered. Ghost, ghost, so many ghosts have appeared. The dozen or so people had just walked to a relatively spacious and flat area. There were spiraling bone pillars all around them, just like naturally formed stalactites rising from the ground. Only these bone pillars had large amounts of terrifying skulls embedded in them. At this moment, the skulls released a smoke-like energy. This energy quickly gathered in the air and quickly formed a fierce-looking ghost source spirit. There were many of them, and in the blink of an eye, there were several hundred of them. The dozen people were completely surrounded. The various ancient creature skeletons piled up all around them began to tremble. What? A bone arm reached out. Meng Yingying's slender leg was grabbed. She, who was already frightened, gave a sharp cry as she quickly kicked out. Meng Yingying's battle strength was not high, but she was still a true spirit cultivator. True spirit cultivator's spirit energy erupted and the bones were instantly shattered. Meng Yingying was still in shock as she found that the place where the bones touched her was smoking. It was a good thing she had the starlight immortal body to protect her, otherwise with this kind of strong death energy entering her body, her leg would have been mostly crippled. The entire world turned into a sea of bones. Countless strange skeletons slowly crawled out. There were so many of them that it was hard to imagine. There were quite a few complete ancient beast skeletons and their bodies released an aura that was not inferior to a level 3 demon beast. Meng Yingying was scared silly. Run! Run your head. Chu Tian directly knocked her head. Truly useless. Don't tell others that you're with me in the future. Meng Yingying was very unconvinced. There were over 1,000 undead monsters awakened this time. These undead monsters had been sleeping in this tomb for who knows how long, and they were all very strong now. There were even some that were not inferior to true spirit experts. Meng Yingying was raised by Chu Tian and she had never participated in any battles before. Although her cultivation was high, she was actually pitifully weak. How could she have seen this kind of scene before? Chu Tian patted the little fox. Let's go. The little fox immediately moved. Its figure flickered and in an instant, it passed over the strongest undead monsters. Although the little fox's body looked like a normal little thing to them, it was like a bullet hitting its prey. These strong undead monsters collapsed with a single touch. They were monsters without intelligence in the end. The little fox could easily swallow their soul flames. Chu Tian waved his hand and the demonic god priests began to summon. Several dozen summoned beasts surrounded them and the divine servants formed a barrier to block the attacks of these undead monsters. A skeleton bird quickly charged over. The divine servants shattered it with a single punch. Meng Yingying was stunned. When did these things become this strong? Nonsense, how could the puppets I refined be ordinary? Chu Tian gave an order to the demonic god priests. Do you see these undead souls? I need large amounts of these spiritual bodies. If you help me collect more, this city lord will greatly reward you. The Fox clan priests finally understood. It was no wonder Chu Tian would find the demonic god priests. Chu Tian's main goal in coming here was actually to collect these undead spirits. In the entire Miracle City, only the demonic god religion was proficient in preserving souls. This was the basis of their summoning techniques. The little fox completely suppressed the strongest undead. The summoned beasts, Chu Tian, and Meng Yingying blocked the other undead and the demonic god priests took out bottles filled with strange runes. They used some unknown demonic technique to suck in the undead spirits. Meng Yingying wasn't afraid after getting used to it. Although there were countless undead monsters, they couldn't do anything to them for now. Not to mention that they had city return scrolls, so they didn't need to worry about their safety at all. She asked in a strange voice, "Why are you collecting so many spirits?" "Don't ask so much, just work properly." The undead monsters in this place seemed like they could never be killed. After fighting for an entire half an hour, not only did the undead around them not decrease, there were even more of them. City Lord, the soul-sealing bottles are already full, we can't store any more. The bottles in the demonic god priest's hands were filled with purple soul energy. They kept hitting the walls of the bottles, as if they would shatter the bottles at any moment. Enough, let's retreat. Chu Tian led everyone and began to retreat. However, before they left this strange tomb, he cast a glance into the distance. His gaze revealed a look of contemplation. This place was clearly not formed naturally. It was probably a place set up by an ancient powerhouse. So, what exactly was sealed here? It wasn't time yet. Now wasn't the time. Since the ruins weren't far from Miracle City, it wouldn't be too late to explore them in the future. When Chu Tian returned to the city, it was already dark. This trip's harvest wasn't bad. There were over 100 spirits sealed in the soul-sealing bottles that weren't weak. He directly brought these things to the laboratory. The gnomes were very surprised by Chu Tian's sudden rebellion. Clark asked in a curious voice, "City Lord, is this appropriate?" Chu Tian directly threw a blueprint to him. "Don't ask so much, go prepare it immediately." The gnomes didn't dare be careless and immediately went to work. Meng Yingying looked at Chu Tian. "What medicine are you selling in your gourd? Ask less and look more. How can you talk so much? I'm too talkative, annoying you to death. Take a hit." Yingying's round but was slapped. Meng Yingying angrily chased after him, but she was taken down by the divine servants in just 2-3 moves. How could she fight Chu Tian? She could only angrily say some words. She would call her good sisters Nangong Yun and Vivian over and the three of them would beat him together. He really was a fool. Nangong Yun and Vivian were indeed good at fighting, but the two of them worshipped Chu Tian like he was a god, so they didn't dare make a move against Chu Tian. While the two of them were bickering, the gnomes were already prepared. Clark stared at the source energy array on the ground. It was releasing a purple glow and was made up of several arrays. If his guess wasn't wrong, this was a soul-attributed array. Who had seen a soul-attributed array in this era before? The gnomes were all curious as they came over. A soul-sealing bottle was placed in the center of the array. With a pu sound, the bottle cap flew up. A dozen or so evil spirits rushed out, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Chu Tian calmly said, "Activate the array." The gnome priest quickly activated the array and the evil spirits were covered in light, immediately letting out sharp screams. These spirits were naturally formed vengeful spirits, so their resentment, hatred, and killing intent were too strong. Chu Tian's array could purify them one by one without killing them. Clark was very shocked. Resentment and hatred were the source of resentment, so they were good at spiritual attacks. If the negative energy was purified, in theory, it would be impossible for them to form a body. Chu Tian purified the evil spirits and kept them in their pure spiritual form. This was inconceivable. Of course, after being purified, they didn't have any energy left, leaving behind an empty shell of a spiritual body. These spirits are already in a stable state without any attacks because they are made of soul energy and spiritual energy. These two things are the foundation of thinking. Chu Tian said this while making a few wrinkles. As long as we modify these spirits, they can obtain simple thinking abilities. This is the simplest form of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. Everyone's expressions changed. Chapter 450. Artificial intelligence was a very advanced concept. It would be strange if primitive people like Clark and Meng Yingying could understand it. Artificial intelligence was artificial intelligence. This kind of thing could not be considered a life form, nor could it be considered an undead. It was just a tool that could think. Since it had intelligence, it could think. Since it could think, it could learn. Since it could learn, it could progress. This was the difference between an artificial intelligence and a normal puppet. Because the spiritual body's level isn't high enough, it can only form basic intelligence. Chu Tian said to the several artificial intelligence that had already been modified, although these spiritual bodies have intelligence, they can't form their own consciousness. Therefore, they are an excellent intelligent tool. They will never be tired, annoyed, or afraid. In the future, they can be mass-produced and used in many different fields, which will greatly increase our efficiency. The gnomes were deeply shocked. Artificial intelligence could control most knowledge through self-learning, so it was hard to imagine their future potential. Whether it was city management or laboratory research, artificial intelligence could occupy a very important position. This was because artificial intelligence was an existence with no emotions but intelligence. They knew how to think, but they didn't have any consciousness. They were absolutely fair, absolutely calm, and absolutely observable. They really never would have thought. Chu Tian had casually created such an incredible thing. Meng Yingying didn't think too much about it, but she knew that with tens of thousands of artificial intelligence, there would be tens of thousands of scholars who wouldn't get tired and would always be working. The Yunsec's research efficiency would be greatly increased. Clark quickly asked, "Sir City Lord, can you prepare a batch of these artificial intelligence for the research base?" This kind of low-level artificial intelligence is very easy to produce. With the millions of departed spirits in the death ruins, it isn't a problem for us to produce as many as we want. Chu Tian said this before shaking his head. The biggest problem is how to train them. Although the artificial intelligence will never get tired, this kind of low-level intelligent body's intelligence is limited, so their learning speed is very slow. If we want them to learn how to speak and learn other skills, it would take at least 5-8 years. If we want them to have enough knowledge, it would take several decades or even 100 years. The gnomes disagreed. Half-elves had a lifespan of a few hundred years, but spirit bodies had an unlimited lifespan. If a group of spirit bodies could be raised from scratch and passed down from generation to generation, after a few thousand years, each of these fellows would become a top-notch master. Of course, Chu Tian knew what they were thinking. Even though the theory of artificial intelligence can exist forever, the memory space of an artificial intelligence is limited. This kind of low-level artificial intelligence can only learn to speak and communicate daily. At most, they can master some basic knowledge. When their memory space is filled, they can no longer improve. There's a growth limit? Clark frowned. Then what should we do? If it was just ordinary daily communication and assistant work, it would at most free up a lot of manual labor and unskilled brain work. The invention of artificial intelligence could save people a lot of trouble, but there was no way to create more value. There are 2 ways to change it. The first is to create a more advanced artificial intelligence. Chu Tian tossed something to Clark. "Here, purify this thing first." That's the soul fire of a lich. Clark recognized it with a single glance. This was the lich's soul fire found in the remains of the lich dragon after Chu Tian fought with it. It contained all of the lich's memories and wisdom. Clark was very curious why Chu Tian kept it, but now Clark finally understood. This soul fire could also be used to create an artificial intelligence. The soul fire needed a carrier. Chu Tian disassembled 10 spirits and used an array to refine them into one. Then he purified the lich's soul fire. Although this lich had lived for over 2,000 years, it had already lost the ability to feel anything. However, its consciousness had not been completely eliminated. Chu Tian did not need an artificial intelligence that still had its own consciousness. Combine. The lich's soul fire was poured into the new body. The spirit body's appearance immediately changed, turning into the lich's appearance from before. A large robe covered its body, and a pair of glowing red eyes could be seen from within the hood. However, unlike the lich from before, this was a specter in the form of a spirit. The lich's power had completely disappeared, but its memories and intelligence remained. "From today onwards, your name will be 0. "Understood, Sir City Lord." There was a fluctuation around 0 and the sound of the air vibrating was transmitted to everyone's ears. This voice was very mechanical, without any emotions or consciousness at all. This was completely different from the spirit body he had just created. This was a high-level artificial intelligence. Whether it was its current knowledge or future learning potential, it was not something a low-level artificial intelligence could compare to. Chu Tian asked, "Clark, what do you think?" This is truly a wonderful technology. Clark's words were not false. He never would have dreamed that Chu Tian would turn the lich into an intelligent puppet. From now on, the lich's 2,000 years of accumulated wisdom and memories could all be used by Chu Tian, only Sir City Lord. This kind of artificial intelligence is very hard to make. What is the City Lord's second method? The second method. Chu Tian deliberately dragged out his voice, that is to use the artificial intelligence as the core of the computer and implant it into the supersource energy computer. Even if it is a low-level artificial intelligence, as long as it is combined with the source energy computer's powerful calculation, storage, and analysis abilities, it will become an unimaginable existence. The gnomes were stunned. What was Sir City Lord saying? Why couldn't they understand at all? At this time, Vivian used the communication device to contact Chu Tian. She told Chu Tian that she had arrived in southern Xia's central state and that the transport tower was currently being constructed. It would only take half a day before it could be used. Chu Tian's eyes lit up. I'm too lazy to explain, it's better to see it with my own eyes than to say it. Clark, come with me to southern Xia. Sir City Lord, you. What did you say? Clark has lived in the forest for 380 years and has never left the forest before. He never thought he would leave the forest one day because the forest of chaos is just too big. There are enough resources and space inside, enough for the gnomes to live and reproduce. Go to southern Xia? A human country? That's right, Vice City Lord Vivian has already prepared transport towers. It won't take long to connect the two sides. Clark never dreamed that he would be able to leave the forest of chaos one day and head to a human country. When Vivian finished building the transport tower in Central State City, Chu Tian brought a large group of people to Miracle City's transport tower. He first tested the other side's spatial coordinates and confirmed that the transport could be completed. Chu Tian did not waste time. Everyone prepare yourselves, the spatial journey is about to begin. As soon as his voice fell, Chu Tian activated the transport array. The space began to slightly tremble as invisible energy quickly gathered, condensing into a hard-to-see spatial force field. When the spatial structure began to change, the elements in the air were pushed away, finally releasing a dazzling white light. It was unknown how long it had been since he had experienced this feeling. When Chu Tian lived in the future 30,000 years in the future, there were transport towers and spatial gates everywhere. He even needed to use one to pee, so after transmigrating to this era, these things were especially precious. The light disappeared. Chu Tian's surroundings completely changed. There were no more green mountains, no more waterfalls, no more forests, and what replaced it was a large human-style palace. Yun Tianhe, Gu Qianxiu, the countless Yun sect scholars, as well as the Southern Summer King, Shen Fengho, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and the others, they were all gathered here, witnessing this miracle together. Success! Gu Qianxiu and Yun Tianhe roared out. Each scholar began to cheer. The Southern Summer King, Shen Fengho, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and the others were all filled with excitement. When Chu Tian was transported over, they didn't dare believe this was real. How could there be such a magical technique in this world? Now they were told that there was nothing impossible in this world. At least it was like this for Chu Tian. Greetings to the country guarding ruler. Greetings to the country guarding ruler. Greetings to the Cloud Dream Marquis. A white light flashed around Chu Tian. Meng Qinggu, Meng Yingying, and Nangong Yun, these people that had been separated for a long time, all returned to Southern Xia. These people were simply legends of Southern Xia. Especially Chu Tian, he was simply like a god. All of Southern Xia worshipped him, and his status was not inferior to the Southern Summer Kings. Chu Tian walked over with a smile. Everyone, long time no see. Greetings to the Southern Summer King. The Southern Summer King gave a bitter laugh, not knowing what to say. The white light flashed again. Clark was transported over. When everyone saw him, they all revealed shocked expressions. The gnomes rarely came in contact with humans, and this was a race that had only been seen in books. They never thought that they would see one in front of them. But compared to the humans' shock, Clark's brain had simply short-circuited. When he appeared in the royal palace of southern Xia, when he saw the various humans around him, when he felt the different environment, he almost suspected that he had not woken up yet. This is the gnome Great Elder Clark. Although he does not have the title of a scholar, he is very knowledgeable. It is entirely possible for him to become a country scholar or even a country scholar. Chu Tian gave a simple introduction. Elder Clark, this is southern Xia, a small human kingdom to the north of the Forest of Chaos. Everyone was filled with deep respect. So it's an expert from the Forest of Chaos. The Southern Summer King nodded. Since you are honored guests, Southern Summer will not neglect you. We will immediately hold a banquet to welcome our guests and also to welcome the country guarding ruler and the Cloud Dream Marquis. There's no need for a banquet. Chu Tian did not come back to eat and drink. I want to see the source energy computer. Yun Tianhe and Gu Qianxiu were interested. Yes, Chairman, please come with us. Chapter 451. There was a large change in southern Xia. Central State City's population had increased by a third compared to when Chu Tian left, and it was twice as prosperous as before. This was not only because Central State City had become the imperial city of Southern Summer, but also because it was the birthplace of miracle commerce. Miracle Commerce had a large laboratory in Central State City and a large industrial park, which directly boosted Central State City's growth. Especially after the Miracle Commerce Space Warehouse was opened, Miracle Commerce often sold resources from the Forest of Chaos to Southern Xia, which greatly increased Southern Xia's strength. At this moment, people like Shen Fengho, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and the others had all broken through their bottlenecks. The two of them were now experts in the first true spirit layer. The barbarian berserkers trained in Southern State's Berserker training camp had been hired by Southern Xia to form an army. They had also bought large amounts of source energy weapons through Miracle Commerce's factory and used the Four States Lake as a natural barrier, so it was hard for the Warhound's kingdom to gain any advantage. Now that Southern Xia had recovered its strength, it was not weaker than before. Southern Xia quickly became famous in a short period of time. There were caravans coming to Southern Xia from the surrounding countries in order to buy products from Miracle Commerce. Therefore, although Southern Xia's citizens still used Southern Summer gold coins, they had already begun to use source stones for large transactions. This was a sign of connecting to the international market. Southern Xia becoming the great summer country was just around the corner. Clark walked on the streets of Central State City and felt like he was in another world. There were several dozen airships flying back and forth in the sky. There were tall buildings and various large screens, all showing all kinds of eye-catching advertisements and the sound of horns coming from the streets. There were fewer beast carriages on the streets. Most likely because of Miracle Commerce's culture, Central State had become a very innovative place. There were already prototype source energy hover cars powered by source energy batteries. Now there were many people using this new convenient transportation tool, traveling through the city like beetles. This was truly too shocking. How could a small country like Southern Xia develop to such an extent? The prosperity and affluence of the human city far surpassed Clark's imagination. He did not dare believe that this was only the capital of a small country. The rapid rise of the humans in the last few hundred years was not without reason. Perhaps in another few thousand years, the elves and spirit beasts' limelight would be suppressed by the humans. The Central State Laboratory had also changed greatly. After Chu Tian left Central State, he took a part of the business with him and placed it in the Southern State Laboratory. The Central State Laboratory focused on the source energy computer, and after several expansions, it was doubled in size. There were over 2,000 people working on the source energy computer. With the core technology and ideas provided by Chu Tian, the research team of more than 2,000 people went through more than 135,000 adjustments and experiments before they finally completed something that was ahead of the times. When the members of the Central State Laboratory knew that Chu Tian was coming, they immediately ran out to welcome him. Chu Tian saw several familiar figures among them. For example, the Lin Xian siblings, the two founders of the Heavens Alliance. Now that they had joined Miracle Commerce and had become official researchers of the Yun sect, they were young and promising, making people envious. They were walking on the road to realizing their dreams. Greetings to the chairman and vice chairman. Everyone excitedly bowed down, almost kneeling down to Chu Tian and Lin Xian. These were scholars from all over the world, and a portion of them had never seen Chu Tian before. They could only understand this person through Chu Tian's image and deeds. Now that Chu Tian had become a god worshipped by the people of southern Xia, with this legendary person appearing in front of them, how could these people not be excited? Chu Tian was very surprised. How many people have come? That's natural. Gu Qianqiu had already broken through to the true spirit realm, and he looked much younger than before. Perhaps it was because his life was more fulfilling and filled with energy. Not only are there scholars from southern Xia, there are also many people who didn't hesitate to travel thousands of miles from other countries to study in southern Xia. They have all become Yun sect scholars, and there are even 4 great scholars. Chu Tian nodded. Not bad, not bad. The Yun sect can be considered strong. With the Yun sect becoming stronger, the happiest person was of course old man Yun Tianhe. The Yun sect originated from the central state Yun family. The Yun family was a small country's family, but now they were able to use this method to become famous, and they could participate in the Yun sect's research. This was truly a breakthrough. The Yun sect's current strength was not that strong. Among the gnomes that Chu Tian had allied with, there were at least several hundred great scholars in terms of academic level. However, the geographical separation would cause academic isolation, so the human and gnome scholars' research methods were different. The two needed to communicate with each other to integrate. Not to mention the fact that the Yun sect was established by Chu Tian. Gu Qianqiu, Yun Tianhe, and the other Yun sect scholars had been studying with Chu Tian for an entire year, and they had grasped large amounts of Miracle Commerce's core technology. This was a gap that no scholar in the world could catch up to, so they couldn't be judged by their knowledge. Chu Tian's group began to tour the Central State Laboratory. Although a portion of the Central State Yun sect's research had been placed in Southern State, this was still the earliest research center of Miracle Commerce, so it was still the place where Miracle Commerce's technology was most concentrated. Almost every product and technology of Miracle Commerce had been stored. I suggest that Great Elder Clark form a group of scholars when he returns and have the gnome scholars come to Central State to study for a while. What do you think? That's exactly what I wish for. That's exactly what I wish for. Clark had already been deeply shocked by Miracle Commerce. Clark finally understood Chu Tian's background, and he also felt a large opportunity and future. Most of the gnomes were scholars. Miracle City's resources were much stronger than Central State's, and Miracle City's research center was much larger than Central State's. Moreover, Chu Tian had already made Miracle Commerce his headquarters, so the Yun sect's future headquarters would be in Miracle City. The gnomes would have a large opportunity. If they could join the Yun sect, the gnomes would have a decisive position in the Yun sect. This was enough for the gnomes to be recorded in history, becoming the representative of the continent's scholars, pioneers of invention and innovation, becoming a large influential clan in another way. Yun Tianhe opened the door to a laboratory. Rows of drawer-like black boxes appeared in front of them. When one of the black boxes was pulled out, each box was filled with source energy array slabs. There were 6 of these black boxes, forming a hexagon. They were all connected together, forming a large and complex source energy matrix. This source energy matrix was made up of over 10 arrays, and each array had over 100 source energy arrays. There were over 300,000 runes in total, and it needed around 10 energy columns to operate at the same time. These are the main units. They are the first-generation source energy matrix. Yun Tianhe said in a very proud voice. This source energy matrix contains over 300 source energy array processing centers and 8 information storage arrays. Its calculation speed can reach 500 million times per second, which is enough to process a large amount of information. Calculating 500 million times per second? Clark revealed a stunned expression. With this kind of powerful calculation ability, if it was used on source energy array deductions or experiments, how much of a help would it be? 500 million times? Chu Tian shook his head. It's too slow. This was still slow. Everyone didn't know what to say. Not to mention the size is too big. Chu Tian looked at the 6 large black boxes and shook his head. We need to increase the strength of the source energy array and also shrink the size of the array, otherwise a single source energy array would take up the entire room. It would be too bulky and cumbersome, it would not be good for popularizing it. Yun Tianhe and Gu Qianxiu both wiped their sweat. The chairman's request could scare a person to death. This source energy matrix took over a year to make. Did he want to popularize this thing to the entire world? That was simply a joke. Chu Tian said, we are preparing to make an automatic array engraving device. Together with an intelligent computer, array masters will not need to personally engrave runes one by one in the future. All talismans and alchemy production will be automated and the production efficiency will increase. The automatic array engraving device needed source stones to operate. Because the source energy contained in source stones was the closest to the human body, it could be used to create source energy arrays. Source energy batteries were an industrial energy source that could maintain source energy arrays, but it could not be used to create source energy arrays. So, the array engraving device would cost a lot, but it would free up large amounts of labor, allowing them to increase their technology. Gu Qianxiu said, this source energy matrix is still missing a core. There's no need for you to say it, I've brought it. Chu Tian gently waved his hand and the artificial intelligence 0 was released. 0, begin the fusion. 0's illusory body floated to the center of the giant source energy matrix. There was a crystal there and 0's body melted into it. Almost in an instant, an invisible energy spread out and the entire source energy matrix was activated. Chu Tian directly asked, 0, how do you feel? 0's voice came from the matrix, the entire array has been connected to me. Is 0 really that strong? Meng Yingying was a bit in disbelief. You shouldn't be bragging, right? Chu Tian snappily said, if you don't believe me, you can test him. Test me. Meng Yingying loudly asked a series of questions. 0, let me ask you. 2525413 times 4342342 times 21,343 times 43,543 times 654,245 times 143,432. What is the final result? 0 didn't hesitate to answer in half a second. Meng Yingying spent several minutes to calculate it and found that it wasn't wrong at all. The several hundred decimal places were all calculated and she instantly revealed a look of admiration. Chu Tian was amused by Meng Yingying. You want to ask 0 this kind of child's play question? Meng Qingwu never thought that the combination of the artificial intelligence and the source energy matrix would have such a shocking effect. If this source energy computer is brought to Miracle City, it can be used to manage Miracle City's accounts, bank data, citizens' information, and even city planning. I think it will be very convenient. How could it be just like that? Chu Tian said with a smile. The source energy matrix system's calculation speed cannot be compared to the human brain. Using it to create a spiritual space will be more stable, using it to invent new source energy arrays will be more outstanding, using it to control source energy weapons will be more terrifying, and using it to control production will be more precise. In the future, when the computing power increases by several hundred or thousand times, we can even use it to calculate various changes. In short, its functions are not something you can imagine. That's right. 0 was the continent's first super source energy computer. Although it couldn't compare to humans in terms of invention and creation, it was something no mortal could compare to in terms of logic and calculation. It had already reached the realm of spiritual gods. Chu Tian ordered, young miss, send 0 to Miracle City. You will be the only person with the highest authority other than me. From now on, 0 will be Miracle City's management system. I believe that with this thing, Miracle City's development will increase by a large amount. Meng Qingwu asked, when can the second one be made? Gu Qianxiu and Yun Tianhe looked at each other. I'm afraid it will take at least a month. That long? We can't. Chu Tian shook his head and said, recruit more people, I'll have the gnomes come over to help you. First create the array machine, we don't have time to make it one by one. This thing needs to be mass-produced, it needs to be smaller and smaller, and it needs to be faster and faster. The birth of an intelligent computer. This was the true beginning for Chu Tian. Chapter 452. The Super Source Energy Matrix, the Artificial Intelligent Spirit. The two were completely different things. According to normal history, the two would appear 400–500 years apart. First, there was the Source Energy Matrix, and then there was the Artificial Intelligent Spirit. Therefore, the Source Energy Matrix in the history books was controlled by humans at first, so it could only be used for normal calculations and statistics. After all, a living person couldn't merge with the Matrix, and the Matrix itself didn't have any intelligence. When the Artificial Intelligent Spirit appeared, the situation was different. Gu Qianqiu said with a sigh, "This thing will definitely be recorded in history, chairman should give it a new name." Chu Tian also felt that computer didn't sound good, so he said to the people beside him, "I'm not good at naming things, you guys can do it." "I have one." Meng Yingying scratched her head and blurted out, "How smart is its brain?" "We'll call it Smart Brain. What do you think?" Meng Qingwu nodded in satisfaction, "I think it's very good." Chu Tian didn't think too much before making his decision. "All right, then we'll call it Smart Brain." Smart Brain. This was a super intelligent computer with strong learning and calculation abilities. It could be used in all aspects of life in the future. This was another milestone in the continent's history and a leap forward for miracle commerce. Meng Qingwu was already a bit impatient. "Immediately send this Smart Brain to Miracle City to use first. I want to figure out how many functions smart brains have." Chu Tian waved his hand at her. "What is the young miss in a rush for? Smart Brain won't fly away if we leave it here. Now that Miracle City and Central State have a transport network, we can teleport between the two places at any time. It's already very convenient to go back and forth, so there's no need to be in a rush." This was also true. It was really convenient to have the transport tower. Speaking of the Miracle Transport Tower, we consume quite a bit of energy each time we use it, so there should be a limit to the number of people we can teleport each day. Moreover, while the transport tower brings convenience, it also brings danger and instability. For example, people from the outside world can use the transport tower to come to Miracle City. Meng Qingwu asked, "Is there a way to prevent this from happening?" The Miracle Transport Towers were built all over the world. It was impossible for Miracle Commerce to guard every transport tower tightly. There was always the possibility of accidents happening, which would undoubtedly bring danger. When the Miracle Transport Tower is connected to the Smart Brain in the future, we will be able to control everything, so we don't need to worry about this. Chu Tian paused for a moment. As for now, we can only raise the threshold to limit the abuse of the teleportation function. Meng Qingwu nodded. The two of them drafted a Miracle Commerce Transport Tower Usage Regulations and Guidelines. This set of rules clearly wrote, before using the Miracle Transport Tower, one had to first apply for a Transport Tower Use Permit from Miracle Commerce and also a Transport Pass Permit to the destination. The former was the right to use the local transport tower and the latter was the right to reach the destination. Unless it was a person with special authority in the upper echelons of Miracle Commerce, every teleportation had to be submitted to the relevant department of Miracle Commerce one day in advance. The teleportation time and teleportation intent had to be reported clearly. After approval, they had to pay a fee of 20 source stones to complete the teleportation service. After going around in circles, in the end, they still had to spend 20 low-grade source stones. 20 low-grade source stones converted to Southern Summer gold coins, that was 20 million gold coins. This kind of cost was hard for normal people to imagine, but with this kind of restriction, the transport tower would not be overloaded and it would be able to prevent any danger from occurring. Meng Qingwu nodded in satisfaction. It was much safer this way. Not only did the transport tower become safer, it was also a foundation for commercialization. That night, the upper echelons of Miracle Commerce gathered in the Southern Summer Royal Palace. The Southern Summer King held a grand banquet to celebrate Miracle Commerce's glory and also to thank Miracle Commerce for their support and care for Southern Xia. Actually, the reason why Miracle Commerce could smoothly develop in the early stages was because of Shen Fenghe, Yun Tianhe, and the Southern Summer King Dongfang Gan. The reason why Southern Xia was able to smoothly pass through several crises was also because of Chu Tian and Miracle Commerce's help. Especially after Southern Xia's imperial region was destroyed, Southern Xia had to move its capital to Central State. Chu Tian brought his team to leave Central State, but he kept bringing back various resources and selling weapons and troops to Southern Xia. This allowed the half-dead Southern Xia to quickly recover its vitality. The entire Southern Xia was filled with gratitude towards Chu Tian. Although Miracle Commerce would slowly move out of the kingdom, the traces of Miracle Commerce would never disappear. Miracle Commerce would still leave behind large amounts of factories and laboratories in Southern Xia, and they would continue to operate. Not only would they provide large amounts of jobs for Southern Xia, they would also increase the prosperity of the kingdom. Meng Yingying, Nan Gongyun, and Vivian were very happy. The three girls repeatedly clinked their cups and drank until their faces turned red. Let's drink another cup. Let's go to the theater after we finish eating. Alright, I heard he has a new work coming out recently. Nan Gongyun and Yingying had a lot of feelings for Central State. After all, they had grown up here and had over 10 years of memories. Meng Yingying's face turned red. It wasn't easy to come back, and I thought we wouldn't have another chance in this life. Who would have thought that the transport towers would be built and we could come back to play at any time? This is truly great. That's right. Nan Gongyun laughed. Our boss really is skilled. Vivian also chattered on. Distance won't be a problem in the future. When we're in the mood, we can come back to eat or go to the theater to watch a movie. This kind of life is very beautiful just thinking about it. Big brother Chu Tian is too great. Dolores had just been called back from Miracle City, and this was her first time coming to a human place. Everything was filled with novelty. This is where the Vice City Lord lived? It seems like the Vice City Lord's status in this country wasn't low. Meng Qingwu nodded with a faint smile. She didn't like drinking wine and would only take a sip every time. In order to keep a clear head, she shook her head with a bitter smile. What status? If it was a year and a half ago, I would have been a small merchant in a small city several hundred miles away. I would have been walking on thin ice every day, living a life filled with fear. How is that possible? Dolores called out in shock. Your company is this big and you're a marquis of a country. Moreover, you're this smart and capable. How could you be a small merchant? I don't believe it. Human society is more complicated than the forest. At that time, there was no strength, no background, and no technology, so how could you have any achievements? Meng Qingwu said this, and her eyes became a bit blurred. Everything has changed in this year. Miracle Commerce has gone from nothing, from small to big. It really is shocking. 1 year? Miracle Commerce only used 1 year? Dolores felt like she couldn't close her mouth. This was clearly not the work of Meng Qingwu. It was all the work of the mysterious Miracle City Lord. He really was a miraculous person. This king will use this chance to announce a few things. The Southern Summer King gently raised his hand and several royal proclamations were presented. Miracle Commerce has given Southern Xia a new lease of life, so the Cloud Dream Marquis is now given the title Cloud Dream Ruler, Nan Gongyun is given the title Phoenix Marquis, and Meng Yingying is given the title Marquis Ying. Southern Xia is small and has no land to give, so although it is an empty title, it represents the friendship of Southern Xia. Whether it was Nan Gongyun or Yingying, they did not care about the Marquis title. They had the resources in their hands. How could a title compare to them, not to mention an empty title? But being able to become a marquis in their homeland was still a matter worth celebrating. While everyone was feeling happy, suddenly, a communication device on the Southern Summer King's side rang. Portable communication devices were very common in Central State, and most people with a bit of status were equipped with them. How could the Southern Summer King not have one as the king? The Southern Summer King did not say much before his brows knit together. There is a situation in the Northern Defense Line. This king cannot accompany everyone. I've been rude. What did you say? Could it be that the Northern Spirit Beasts are attacking again? Nan Gongyun almost flipped the table. How preposterous. Are you done? It's not a full-scale attack. The Southern Summer King shook his head and said, it's just harassment. Everyone doesn't know. Yun Tianhe said from the side, When you left Southern Summer, the warhounds have already harassed Southern Summer 5-6 times. Although they returned without any success, they still brought quite a bit of trouble. Southern Xia can block the warhounds' attacks, but they do not have enough military strength to counterattack, so the north and south are currently in a state of separation. Chu Tian knit his brows. How is the warhounds' battle strength? After the Battle of the Four States Lake, the Fang King and his army were completely annihilated. The warhounds have gathered another 300,000 elites on the warhounds' plains, and the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom has added another 300,000, with around 600,000 troops stationed in the fortress. Although there are more and more troops stationed here, they have only been harassing us, which means that they are still accumulating strength. As long as their army reaches a certain level, they will launch another large battle against Southern Summer. It's too troublesome to have a ticking time bomb by our side. Chu Tian looked at the young miss beside him. How about we take advantage of this time to eliminate them in one go? Eliminate them in one go? The Southern Summer King and the others all stared with wide eyes. Chu Tian said this in an incomparably relaxed tone. How was this like destroying a large kingdom? It was as simple as drinking a cup of water in front of him. Who would have thought that Meng Qingwu would not be surprised by Chu Tian's suggestion? After thinking about it for a minute, she nodded and said, "This is also good. Miracle Commerce's business in Central State is not small, and if it is exposed to the enemy's army, it will be like a fishbone stuck in our throat. It is better to eliminate it as soon as possible. This can be considered taking revenge for the old Marshal Dongfang Zhan and the other heroes who died in Southern Xia." Chapter 453. The Warhounds' Kingdom was a large kingdom no matter what, and the Warhounds' plains were filled with soldiers. How could they be destroyed so easily? Miracle Commerce had left Southern Xia for a long time. When did they become this arrogant? It was fine if Chu Tian was like this, but had Meng Qingwu also been assimilated by this fellow? Southern Summer's strength is slowly recovering, but we still don't have enough battle strength. We can protect ourselves, but we can't counterattack. The Southern Summer King gave a sigh, not to mention that even if we can destroy the main force of the Warhounds' Kingdom, there are still several tens of millions of fierce spirit beasts in the Warhounds' plains. There is also the incomparably strong Eagle Burial Kingdom behind the Warhounds' plains. This was the truth. A warring kingdom was not a small matter. The Eagle Burial Kingdom's experts could not compare to the giants of the Forest of Chaos, but the Eagle Burial Kingdom was a large kingdom with over 1.5 billion people, and it was a spirit beast kingdom. The difference between the Spirit Beast Kingdom and the Human Kingdom was very big. The Human Kingdoms were rich, prosperous, and civilized, while the Spirit Beast Kingdoms were loose, barbaric, and warlike. If the Human Kingdoms and the Spirit Beast Kingdoms fought on the same level, they would not be able to win. A Warhounds' plains with a population of several tens of millions could form a Warhounds' Kingdom. A Warhounds' Kingdom with a population of several tens of millions could form an army of 1 million, and a Warhounds' Kingdom with a population of several tens of millions could beat the 200 million Southern Xia half to death. This was a Spirit Beast Kingdom. A Spirit Beast Kingdom where every citizen was a soldier. The Eagle Burial Kingdom's population was estimated at 1.5 billion. This was considered a large kingdom on the continent. Moreover, with the characteristics of a Spirit Beast Kingdom, the proportion of their army was very high, especially for a warring kingdom that fought all over. Therefore, the Eagle Burial Kingdom had a large army of over 10 million, plundering all over the place. They lived by fighting, and wherever they went, they were shrewd, using tributes from subordinate countries to support their army. The Eagle Burial Kingdom had been fighting all over the place, increasing their population and army. This was a kingdom that was constantly expanding, and Southern Xia was just one of the countries the Eagle Burial Kingdom conquered, so their strength could not be underestimated. Even if the Eagle Burial Kingdom is strong, they are fighting all over and cannot gather their forces. It is impossible for them to send their army to Southern Summer. Meng Qingwu was not worried about the Eagle Burial Kingdom. If the Eagle Burial Kingdom had enough troops, what did they do for the past half year? Dilly-dallying for this long and only sending 300,000 to the Warhounds, this meant that the Eagle Burial Kingdom couldn't send too many troops, Once the North is attacked, we will have a buffer zone and Central State won't need to constantly face the Spirit Beast army. Chu Tian slapped the table, in for a penny, in for a pound. We'll just rule the Warhound Plains and establish a northern militant kingdom. Everyone was speechless. This was becoming more and more ridiculous. Was the Warhounds a country that could be easily destroyed? Was the Warhounds prairie that easy to rule? The tens of millions of spirit beasts there were all nomads. In the vast grasslands that stretched for tens of thousands of miles, they were elusive and hard to track. So how could it be easy to find? Meng Qingwu did not comment, but she began to deploy. The new generation of source energy weapons have been developed, so we'll use this chance to test their power. Have Dongfang Haoren bring over the reserve berserker army that Miracle Commerce has in Southern State. Gu Qianxiu quickly said, "To Chairman, you have to think this over. The reserve army in Southern State is an army that Miracle Commerce spent over 1 billion gold coins to train for several months. Once the war begins, the soldiers' pay, the merit rewards, and all sorts of other expenses will not be a joke." Yun Tianhe also said, "This kind of large-scale war will consume a lot of resources and will drag down Miracle Commerce's development. It's better to bide our time and wait for the kingdom and company to work together. Our Miracle Commerce can't even afford this bit of money." Chu Tian had already made his decision. Central State City doesn't need to interfere. Miracle Commerce's strength is enough. This war will end in less than half a month and will unify the Warhounds Prairie in 2 months. The Southern Summer King knit his brows. It was true that Chu Tian liked to speak arrogantly, but looking at the historical records, his arrogance was well-founded. As for Meng Qingwu, she was a cautious person, never letting go of an arrow. The two of them were this confident, which meant that they could solve this problem. Since the two of you have already decided to fight, how can this king retreat behind the scenes? The current Southern Summer King was a wise and decisive person. Southern Xia cannot rely on strong reinforcements, otherwise the citizens will fall. This king has decided to gather 150,000 soldiers and follow everyone on a northern expedition. There was no need for Central State City to gather 150,000 soldiers. After staying in the Forest of Chaos for a long time, Southern Xia's troops were weak in his eyes. They were no different from clay chickens and pottery dogs. Southern State City was Miracle Commerce's military camp, so there were close to 30,000 barbarian berserkers stationed there. These berserkers' battle strength surpassed the several 100,000 soldiers of Southern Xia. Unless it was a trump card army like the Griffin Knights or the Earth Dragon Knights, it was impossible for them to fight these berserkers. How hard was it to raise a trump card army? If Southern Xia had 20 to 30,000 Griffin Knights or Earth Dragon Knights, history would have already been rewritten. Miracle Commerce's most terrifying part was not their special army. Rather, the terrifying part was that this terrifying army had terrifying equipment. The source energy weapons were enough to raise the army's strength by several levels, so they were not inferior to the elites of a warring kingdom. Miracle Commerce's main commander was Dongfang Haoren. This former Southern Summer King's prince was now the calm martial ruler of the Southern Summer country. He had made large progress in this half a year, but he had never commanded a large-scale battle before, so he could use this chance to sharpen himself. After several hours, the Central State Transport Tower continued to shine. The Minotaur Chief Arnold, the Shaman Priest Luz, the Ogre Chief Nathaniel, the Tiger Chief Andre. There were several dozen people in the Forest of Chaos. The most powerful local warriors all gathered here. Whether it was the Southern Summer King, Shen Fengho, or the Golden Arrow Marquis, their faces all twitched. They had never seen so many different races and different foreign races. What shocked the Southern Summer King and Shen Fengho the most was that these people were all experts in the peak 3rd True Spirit layer, with the strongest people almost reaching the 4th True Spirit layer. This was several dozen True Spirit experts. This was a lineup the small Southern Summer country didn't even dare think about. If any one of these people came out, they would be invincible in the South. The effect of these mere dozens of people on the battlefield was superior to that of an elite lion with more than 100,000 men. If these people caused trouble in Central State, the consequences would be unimaginable. There was no one in Central State City that could stop them. City Lord. Arnold's nostrils flared. How did we get sent here all of a sudden? Where is this? The others didn't react in shock. They were all looking around in shock. The huge ogre's gaze swept across the other humans. That ferocious glint in his eyes and his imposing aura made it hard for them to breathe. All of you listen well. Chu Tian walked in front of them with his hands behind his back. Although he was facing several dozen fierce forest locals, he was not intimidated by the other side's aura at all. Don't say that the City Lord didn't give you a chance. This is a country outside of the Forest of Chaos. There is a vast plain in the north that has large amounts of food and land to steal. I didn't bring you here for anything else but to steal territory and food. The eyes of these locals lit up. They actually came to the Forest of Chaos to steal territory and food? This kind of matter was very strange to them. The people there are pitifully weak. You have to properly grasp this chance. Yes, City Lord. Everyone rubbed their fists in excitement. Chu Tian waved his hand, indicating for everyone to be quiet. This is the king of Southern Xia. The Southern Summer King slightly recovered and immediately had people prepare food. These brave warriors have come from afar and Southern Xia has rushed to prepare. I'm afraid we didn't take good care of them. Someone, come and receive the warriors. These country bumpkins had never left the forest in their lives. This group of country bumpkins, when had they ever enjoyed the luxurious life of humans? The Southern Summer King and the high-level members of Southern Xia all attached great importance to this. They were fortunate enough to visit Southern Xia. This was something they never dared think about in their entire lives. In the next 2 days, whether it was eating, drinking, or living, they would all be served. This was an unprecedented experience. When these several dozen people walked through the city, they immediately caused a stir in Central State and people ran away in fear. However, when the radio stations and the media announced their identities, everyone's attitudes changed. These strange fellows had actually found reinforcements from the endless southern forest. These were warriors that had defeated the warhounds for Southern Xia. Each one of them was a true expert. The Southern Summer citizens were relieved of their fear and treated them like heroes. Arnold and the others had never received this kind of treatment before. These country bumpkins had lived here for a day or two and were praised to the heavens, satisfying their vanity. At this time, a Heaven's Eye airship above the 4 states' lake sent back information and images. The enemy has been locked onto. They are coming from the northwest, mainly using giant flying mounts. Although the image was not clear, it could be vaguely seen that the Eagle Burial Kingdom had over 20,000 people. They had learned from their previous failures and the warhounds would not fight with Southern Xia on the water. Instead, they used giant rocks to transport their troops. Each giant rocks could transport 600-700 soldiers and other than several dozen giant rocks, the rest were air cavalry. This kind of formation allowed the troops to move freely. Their target was the central state port or important areas like the factories. After causing trouble and damage to Southern Xia, they would immediately retreat, not wanting to continue fighting. The giant transport beasts and air cavalry worked together. Southern Xia's air force was very weak, so this arrangement was to attack the enemy's weakness. Miracle Commerce relied on Oldman Small Town to buy many flying demon beasts from the nearby tribes. Miracle City also trained and bought large amounts of flying demon beasts, but distant waters could not quench a nearby thirst. The transport tower's transport capacity was limited, so unless they created a space gate, it was impossible to transport the troops. But there was no need, they had enough strength now. Chapter 454. Oldman Small Town's oil mine had already been mined and with the silver oil as the foundation, the company had already developed a new generation of energy. With this as the foundation, naturally they could create a new generation of weapons. Miracle Commerce had established a large-scale market in Oldman Small Town, continuously sending materials to Southern Xia's secret weapon factory. Now there was already a batch of weapons being made. Meng Qingwu contacted the factory and a new batch of weapons was immediately sent over. It looked like a source energy cannon, but it wasn't the same. The source energy cannon fired an energy wave at the target, creating a strong killing effect. However, even though the source energy cannon was very strong, it had a hard-to-ignore flaw. The energy wave it fired was condensed from energy, so it would constantly weaken and dissipate. The further it was, the weaker it would be. Once it passed a certain distance, it would completely dissipate and its effective range and killing radius would be limited. The weapon sent over now was a weapon that could fire live ammunition, a large-scale rocket launcher. The Miracle Commerce employees brought out 3-meter-long rockets. The rockets were incomparably large, each one as thick as a person's thigh. They were covered in blue crystals and large amounts of runes were used to reinforce them, releasing energy fluctuations from inside. The bottom of the rocket and the rocket launcher have a compatible source energy array. Once the rocket is fired, a large amount of energy will be sent out. It can reach a distance of over 100 miles and its average speed is 7 miles per second. If it encounters a large amount of resistance, the warhead will explode. This is a pretty good long-range weapon. The rocket warhead is made of second-generation energy and its destructive might is very strong. Even a mid or late true spirit realm expert would find it hard to take it head-on. Meng Qingwu continued to explain, when this weapon was invented, it was used to attack fortifications and large-scale targets that wouldn't move. Now with Smart Brain, perhaps we can try to directly attack the enemy's moving troops. Chu Tian said, instead of saying this, it's better to give it a try. Zero, is you prepared? We're already prepared. Good, let's go. Several new warships were docked in the central state port. These were the new generation warships jointly developed by the Southern Summer Royal Family and Miracle Commerce. Not only did they use a higher level source energy, they were also equipped with the first generation source energy cannons. Whether it was speed or battle strength, they were all impeccable. 5 rocket launchers were sent to the deck of a large warship. This time, the launch of the rocket was not manually operated. Zero was built here to form a temporary control panel. This control panel was not only connected to the rocket launcher, it was also connected to the information sent back by the Heaven's Eye airship. The enemy's position, speed, and direction were all quickly sent into the source energy matrix. With 10 energy columns working at the same time, the entire system quickly worked. The first-generation intelligence system was large and cumbersome, but its calculation speed could reach 500 million cycles per second, enough to deal with a tremendous amount of data. The enemy's position, movement trajectory, flight speed, as well as the weapon's data, from this, it could plan out the most accurate and precise attack method. The army of Southern Xia had already assembled. The 150,000 Central State elites had boarded the warships and the 30,000 Southern State berserkers were on the way. It could be said that the war hounds were under Southern Xia's surveillance, so it was impossible for them to sneak attack them. However, the two sides were so far apart that even binoculars couldn't see them. Could the rocket hit the target in the air? This was not like bombing a city. The target was far, small, and active. This was definitely not an easy task. The Southern Summer Kings group, Arnold, Druz, and the others were all standing on the deck, waiting for this moment to happen. The target is in range and has been locked on. It can be fired with an estimated hit rate of 87%. Zero's emotionless mechanical voice sounded, "Do you fire?" Chu Tian looked at the empty sky and nodded, "Fire." Zero coldly said, "Begin firing." The rocket launcher was slightly adjusted, and with a few continuous rumbles, 5 pointed and long spear-shaped rockets were launched into the sky. The tail flames were neither gorgeous nor long, and only a light blue and white energy flow was released. However, the speed was raised to the extreme in an extremely short period of time, as if it was going to pierce through space. When the air was violently rubbing against each other, it actually ignited into raging flames, immediately wrapping around the entire rocket. It was too fast. The rocket instantly broke through the sound barrier and then wildly accelerated, reaching its fastest speed in just a few seconds. It was around 6-7 miles per second, which was around 10 times the speed of sound. How shocking was 10 times the speed of sound? Even true spirit realm experts would find it hard to reach 10 times the speed of sound. The Warhound's army flew 1,000 meters in the air, not knowing that danger was quickly approaching. When they vaguely discovered that there were several beams of light in the sky, it was already too late. The rocket was much faster than the speed of sound. Therefore, it was already too late when they heard the sound of air breaking. The 5 rockets burned as they rubbed against the air, turning into 5 meteors falling from the sky. They flew across tens of thousands of miles, breaking through everything as they flew forward. The Warhound's generals did not even have time to shout out before the 5 missiles hit the giant rock. There was no explosion. It was a storm. Shockingly, it was an energy storm that was expanding. The giant rock was instantly swallowed by the energy storm, and its body was instantly turned into minced meat. Several hundred Warhound's elites were instantly torn apart by the energy, not even leaving a corpse behind. Terrifying. Too terrifying. Everyone could see the energy storm in the sky from afar. Even if they weren't killed by the explosion, with such a terrifying energy storm, it would be hard for them to escape unscathed. It can't be. Nangong Yun's eyes went wide. How could this power be this strong? Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. This weapon isn't bad, we need to mass produce it in the future. This kind of solid missile weapon and pure energy weapon had their own strengths. The source energy cannon had a short range, but it was very strong in its effective killing radius and it was almost impossible to intercept. After all, it was just a wave of energy and the weakness was that it had a high requirement on the barrel. For this kind of dense energy, how could normal materials withstand it? Therefore, strong materials were the prerequisites for producing high-level source energy cannons. The rockets and missiles had a long range. In the future, when miracle commerce entered the information age and automated smart brain era, it would have a terrifying killing range and deterrence. Because it was a solid weapon, the missile would not be consumed before it exploded. Of course, the weakness was that it was easier to intercept and its destructive power was weaker than the source energy cannons. Chu Tian said, "How many more of these rockets do we have?" Meng Qingwu shook her head and said, "This is the newest weapon and this is the first time we are using it, so we don't have much in stock. This is just a test." "What? Truly disappointing," Chu Tian said with a sigh. "The company's production is too weak, we need to strengthen it and strengthen it. All right, listen to my orders, we will immediately move forward and take care of the fish that escaped the net." Although there were no more rockets, their goal had been achieved. Several giant rocks were directly killed and the Warhounds suffered heavy casualties. They had suffered such a heavy defeat before even reaching Central State, it could be imagined how much of a blow this was to the Warhounds. Even if the remaining survivors still had battle strength, they would not have any fighting spirit left. The 150,000 Southern Summer soldiers started their warships and several hundred warships moved across the lake, creating a spectacular scene. Everyone only had one goal, which was to head to the Tsang State port on the northern shore of the Four States Lake and attack the Warhounds' fortress. The defeated Warhounds did not need Southern Xia to chase them at all. The giant shark gang intercepted them while they were retreating, catching all the survivors of the Warhounds' ambush in one fell swoop. After Chu Tian left, the giant shark gang underwent earth-shattering changes. Boss Yu had already become a true spirit cultivator and the giant shark gang had doubled their numbers in just half a year, becoming the #1 gang in Southern Xia. This was a power that no one dared to ignore, especially in the Four States Lake. At this time, a ship from Southern State filled with berserkers arrived. After the Southern Xia army gathered, they immediately headed to the northern shore's Tsang State port. The Southern Xia soldiers had been waiting for this counterattack for a long time. The grudges between the Southern Summer Country and the Warhounds were too deep, especially after Imperial City was taken and the northern states fell. Countless Southern Summer citizens were slaughtered and plundered, causing the Southern citizens to be filled with rage. Only facing the Warhounds' aggressive stance, Southern Xia could not turn the situation around. Chu Tian once again raised the morale of the Southern Summer soldiers. Miracle Commerce was participating in this battle, so it would definitely be a success. Everyone's aura was like a rainbow, swallowing 10,000 miles like a tiger. They charged forward, not stopping for a single moment. The Warhounds never would have thought that the Southern Summer Country would suddenly have a decisive battle. Southern Xia wanted to take advantage of the Warhound's lack of reaction and destroy their foundations, taking back the land that Southern Xia had lost. Chu Tian said, "This kind of direct attack will cause too many casualties. We'll go first and do something behind their backs." Alright. Vivian immediately brought Chu Tian and began to move through space. Vivian's innate spatial energy was not bad. She could teleport several hundred kilometers with each teleportation. Although Chu Tian also had innate spatial energy, he could only teleport short distances. "We're here." The two of them arrived at Song State a day earlier than the fleet. This was the junction between Song State and the Imperial region, with several ports in Song State. It was a very prosperous place for Southern Xia's shipping trade, but after it was occupied by the Warhound's spirit beasts, this place had changed greatly. Chu Tian used Vivian's ability to sneak into Song State's fortress. The two of them quickly placed time bombs in every corner of the fortress. These time bombs were made with second-generation energy technology, so they were naturally very strong. When everything was prepared, Chu Tian left the fortress without anyone knowing. Now he was waiting for a good show to begin. Chapter 455. Vivian cut open space and pulled Chu Tian out. She was already so tired that she almost fell to the ground. Her beautiful little face was red as she gasped for breath. She was covered in sparkling sweat and couldn't even speak. Chu Tian patted her back to calm her down. "What's wrong with you? It's only been a while and you're already exhausted." "Big brother Chutan, it's easy for you to say, but you almost tired me to death." Vivian had to teleport every 30 seconds and she was carrying a person and a fox, so it could be imagined how much energy she used up. "Big brother, don't you have innate spatial energy? This short distance can be covered by yourself." This little girl was still complaining. "I have many abilities, but I'm not good at it. If it's just spatial manipulation, how can I compare to you?" Chu Tian shamelessly flattered the little elf and then sincerely said, "We have to be very precise in the enemy's fortress. We can't teleport more than half a meter away. This is also a chance for you to train yourself, allowing you to increase your strength as soon as possible. I feel that with your innate talent, if your cultivation base increases a bit, you won't even need to show yourself in the future. You just need to open up space and place bombs through it." "Is that so? I will work hard." Vivian's thoughts were simple and she immediately believed him. "Then what do we do now?" The little fox's divine eye could see the entire situation in the fortress. Chu Tian had brought Vivian to place large amounts of source energy bombs and it had been very smooth from start to finish, not leaving a single trace. Now they just had to wait for the fleet to arrive. Dawn was about to pass and the sky was about to light up when the Southern Xia fleet finally appeared. This fleet was very large, with several hundred warships. There were several warships at the front that were equipped with source energy cannons. They were currently lined up on the lake and their momentum was very large. The Warhounds were not blind. How could they not notice this? Alert! There are large amounts of warships on the lake. Damn! The Southern Summer Monkeys. It's the Southern Summer Monkeys. Dispatch the fleet, dispatch the Air Force, immediately sink these monkeys. When the Southern Summer Fleet was still a few hours away from the port, the entire fortress began to prepare. The Warhounds had occupied the north for over half a year, so it was impossible for them to not do anything. In fact, there were over 100 warships docked at the Song State port, all of them collected by the Warhounds through various methods. These port fleets had just received orders from the fortress and were about to leave the port to prepare for battle, but they immediately exploded one by one. The giant shark gang had placed source energy bombs under the warships and before the two sides even made contact, most of the Warhounds' ships had already been destroyed. The Warhounds were in chaos. At this moment, the Air Force was deployed. The Warhounds' air superiority was the only advantage they had over Southern Xia. Although Southern Xia had the airships, they were too big and didn't have enough mobility. Other than the Heaven's Punishment airships that could shoot high up in the sky, their air force was very weak. Chu Tian gave a cold laugh, truly seeking death. When the Warhounds' air force was prepared to dive down on the warships, the front row of warships suddenly released a storm of light bullets. Several tens of thousands of energy bullets filled the sky, and the Warhound's vulture riders were instantly torn to pieces. The broken pieces fell into the lake and dyed the lake red. Source energy spears. These were clearly source energy spears. The Warhound's spirit beasts knew that Southern Xia's army was equipped with quite a few of these weapons and were prepared to be attacked by them, but they thought that as long as they charged forward, the threat of these weapons would be a joke. In the end, they never would have thought that Southern Xia's attack would be 10 times stronger than they had imagined. Southern State's 30,000 reserve army had arrived. This was an army that Miracle Commerce had trained for themselves. Miracle Commerce did not hesitate to invest in this army. The 30,000 barbarian berserkers not only had shocking close combat strength, they were divided into teams of 10 and each team had at least one storm rifle and one source energy cannon. The other members had submachine guns. 30,000 people meant 3,000 storm rifles. 3,000 storm rifles meant it was enough to create a storm of death. Not to mention the fact that Miracle Commerce had developed a multi-barreled heavy firearm that had a total of 6 barrels and could fire 6,000 bullets per minute. This was a weapon that was even more violent than the storm rifles, and Miracle Commerce's weapon designers called it the Destruction Heavy Rifle. Although it couldn't be moved, once it was fixed, it could instantly create a strong suppressive fire in an area. Because of the high material requirements and high energy requirements, there was not enough production of these heavy machine guns. The entire army only had 10 of them, but it was enough to create a terrifying killing effect. With this kind of disparity in strength, was there even a need to fight? It wasn't that Chu Tian looked down on these fellows. Not to mention their current numbers, even if the Warhounds increased their numbers by 3-5 times, they still wouldn't be able to pose a threat to the Southern Summer Fleet. Miracle Commerce bought large amounts of materials and metals from all over the world, and most of them were used to create the source energy weapons. They had never sold large amounts of weapons from start to finish and used all of their high-end weapons on their own army, selling the rest to Southern Xia. The current destructive power of this army was not something any army could imagine. The Warhounds' aerial forces collapsed as soon as they clashed with the Southern Xia fleet. Only a small portion of them escaped in a sorry state, not daring to approach Southern Xia's army again. Seal the fortress! Seal the fortress! Several wolf race commanders roared out in shock and anger. They never would have thought that the Southern Summer Country would become this powerful. Their weapons progress was just too fast. It hadn't even been a year since the Imperial City battle, and their firepower had increased by more than 10 times. The Warhound's fortress soldiers were busy preparing their defenses. Several dozen earth-shattering explosions came from the fortress. The source energy bombs that Chu Tian and Vivian had secretly placed had all exploded. Although it was just several dozen source energy bombs, even if they were the most powerful bombs, it was not enough to destroy the several 100,000 soldiers. However, not killing them did not mean they had no effect. The source energy bombs were placed in important areas of the fortress, and this series of explosions not only caused the fortress defenses to collapse, it also caused all kinds of fortifications to lose their effectiveness. The fortress soldiers were in a mess, already falling into chaos. The Southern Summer Army had enough time to reach the port. The source energy cannons on the ships began to wildly bombard, turning the Warhound's ships and port into ruins. Fully armed barbarian berserkers began to disembark. The Warhound's port guards could not stop them. Miracle Commerce's berserker heavy infantry disembarked without any obstructions. These barbarian soldiers were armed to the teeth as they charged towards the exploding and burning fortress several miles away, preparing all kinds of equipment. It was almost at the same time. Several airships appeared above the Warhound's fortress, and one of the Heaven's Punishment airships had already opened its bomb bay. As long as Miracle Commerce gave the order to attack, countless powerful bombs would rain down on the fortress. It's over. It was completely over. The Warhound's fortress was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Whether it was the Berserker army, the bombing airships, or the over 100,000 soldiers of Southern Xia, the fortress was in chaos and there was no way to stop them at all. Although the spirit beasts were fierce by nature, facing this absolute disadvantage, they were filled with despair. They couldn't even display the spirit of a trapped beast. Chu Tian saw that the situation was about right. He picked up a communication device and opened the public channel. Everyone pay attention, stop attacking. Everyone pay attention, stop attacking. All the attacking forces stopped attacking. But the air, land and water forces were already suppressing the fortress. Countless weapons were still aimed at the fortress and the warhounds did not have any leeway to fight back. Connect to the airship loudspeakers. Chu Tian's communication device was connected to the loudspeakers on the airships. His voice could be transmitted to the entire fortress through these loudspeakers, allowing every soldier in the fortress to hear him clearly. Good friends, I am called Chu Tian. I think everyone knows me, so I'm too lazy to introduce myself. With the current situation, you have no chance of winning. I'll give you a chance to live. Kill the Eagle Burial Kingdom's commander, put down your weapons and surrender. I swear on my honor that I will not kill or mistreat any captives. Don't believe them. The expressions of the two commanders from the Eagle Burial Kingdom fell. Humans are despicable and cunning. They can't be trusted. We have already displayed our strength. There is no chance for us in this battle. Even if the Eagle Burial Kingdom personally comes, Miracle Commerce and Southern Xia are not afraid at all. Since there is no need to fight this battle, why do you need to make pointless sacrifices for the Eagle Burial Kingdom? I'll give you 5 minutes. If the reply I want doesn't appear, I can only turn this place into scorched earth and set the entire Warhound Plains on fire. I'll slaughter your entire tribe. This was a blatant threat. Did the Warhounds people have a choice? The spirit beasts were fierce by nature. They knew that with the current situation, it was impossible to take down Southern Xia. Under the survival instincts of wild beasts, there was an uproar in the fortress. Not long passed. This uproar calmed down. The two Eagle Burial Kingdom commanders and several dozen high-ranking Eagle Burial Kingdom generals were killed. The several 100,000 fortress soldiers threw down their weapons and raised their hands in surrender. The Southern Xia people were a bit confused. Southern Xia clearly had the advantage, so why did they let go of these forces? If these several 100,000 people were killed, the Warhounds would be heavily injured and it would be hard for them to recover. Our true enemy is the Eagle Burial Kingdom and the Warhounds Plains are the buffer between the Eagle Burial Kingdom and the Southern Summer Kingdom. As long as we force the Warhounds to betray the Eagle Burial Kingdom, the Warhounds Plains will automatically become our buffer against the Eagle Burial Kingdom. Not only can we not kill these Warhounds Plains soldiers, we must release them when necessary and even provide them with some equipment and help. Chu Tian said this before adding another point. Other than that, with this example of not killing captives, it will be much easier for us to recover later on. It was like what Chu Tian said. Not only did the Southern Summer Kingdom not kill these several 100,000 soldiers, they even fed them well. When Southern Xia sent out 3 armies to recover the Imperial Region, Furnace State, and Song State, they were unobstructed. The Warhounds already had no confidence and their morale was low. Now that their main force of several 100,000 had been defeated, what reason did they have to put up a desperate resistance? The Southern Xia army opened up 1,000 miles and finally regained all the land they lost half a year ago. Chapter 456. The Warhounds' southern fortress was effortlessly captured by the Southern Summer Country. The general situation was set in stone and there was no other way to change it. So what if the Warhounds Plains had tens of millions of spirit beasts as soldiers? Fighting in this world was never about numbers. Miracle Commerce's 30,000 berserkers could kill hundreds of thousands of enemies as easily as drinking water. The Warhounds elites had been seriously consumed over a long period of time and after several large battles, how could they have any excess left? Not to mention that war was not about military strength, but rather national strength. The Warhounds Kingdom had already gone through many hardships, so how could they raise another large army? The several 100,000 soldiers in the southern fortress were just relying on the food and resources they had plundered from Southern Xia. After the several 100,000 elite soldiers surrendered, the Warhounds Plains did not have any soldiers or food. On the other hand, Chu Tian's subordinates were like clouds and Arnold led the forest locals to instantly kill the prairie experts. Even if they were placed in the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom, they would still be considered first or second-class experts. It was because of this that when Chu Tian attacked Imperial City, Arnold and several dozen people charged forward, but when they returned, they did not know who the Fong King was. Everyone searched and found that the new Warhound's king had been killed by several dozen people. This pitiful Warhound's king had truly died a useless death. Arnold did not realize that he was a king at all and treated him like a lackey. The entire imperial region, Song State, and Furnace State had all been captured. The Warhound's planes were like dried oil lamps. How could they resist the powerful southern summer country? The Warhound's kingdom, this regime that had been established for less than half a year, had already collapsed. The large tribes of the Warhound's plains had suffered heavy losses. It could be said that they tried to steal a chicken but ended up losing the rice used to lure it. They would most likely blame each other and the entire plains would return to their scattered state, with no chance of a comeback. When they returned to the former imperial city of the southern summer country, this city did not have the prosperity of several hundred years. In that incomparably tragic imperial city battle, 2 of the 3 rulers of the southern summer 3 rulers had died and over 100,000 soldiers had been bathed in blood. In the end, the city had formed a resistance army of several 100,000. Unfortunately, resistance was futile. In the Battle of Imperial City, a third of the city was destroyed and the population was reduced by a fifth. After the Warhounds took over Imperial City, they looted the entire city and took all the treasures and resources. They turned the humans into spirit beast slaves and killed anyone who resisted, reducing the population by another fifth. The Warhounds' southern attack had failed and the entire army had suffered heavy losses, but luckily the previous Fong King had foresight and left the elite demon wolf cavalry in the imperial region. So although the entire army had been wiped out and the Fong King had died, the Warhounds still had enough strength to defend their rear. The Eagle Burial Kingdom urgently sent a new king. Because the Warring Kingdom was in a tight situation on all sides, the Eagle Burial Kingdom was fighting at least 8 countries at the same time, so they did not have any extra strength to attack the small southern summer country. This Warhound's king could not wait for reinforcements, so he could only learn from his predecessor's failure. He decided to prepare for a long battle. The Warhound's king enslaved several million humans, opening up fields in the wilderness to provide supplies for the Warhounds. He enslaved several million people to build the southern fortress and repair the destroyed docks to prepare for a long battle. He enslaved several million people to build ships and forge equipment to prepare for the battle in the future. In order to not give southern Xia a chance to breathe, he sent out teams to disturb them. During this process, there were at least 10 million people who were forced to work. They were beaten to death, worked to death, starved to death, ran away, and resisted. In short, the remaining population was reduced to less than half. The war, enslavement, and running for their lives caused almost all the adult males to die. As for the females, this was relatively lucky because the spirit beasts had no interest in human women, but their lack of interest did not mean other people had no interest. The Warhound's king prepared more resources and funds, so he ordered his army to capture large amounts of young and beautiful human women and sell them to the northern countries. However, because it was troublesome and took a long time, there weren't many sold, but it still caused quite a bit of population loss. In short, after half a year of war, the people had no way to live. The northern population was less than a fourth of what it used to be. When the old imperial city's scorched black gates were opened, the once bustling streets were filled with collapsed walls. The stench filled the air and it was a complete mess. There were no adult males in sight and the ones that came out were all women, children, and old people. They were all wearing ragged clothes and hugging their clothes. How could there be any of the proud citizens of Imperial City? They were simply a group of beggars. Our king has finally returned. We knew that the southern summer country would not abandon us. Long live the southern summer country, long live the southern summer country, long live the southern summer country. Countless beggars cried out as they gathered on the streets. This scene was undoubtedly very touching. They were once proud citizens of Imperial City, living rich lives, but now their families had been torn apart. The southern summer king revealed a look of shame. All of this was because the northern defenses were not good and they finally gave up on Imperial City and the two northern states. The Southern Summer King was the calm martial ruler of the Southern Summer Country, the commander of the army and the highest commander on the front lines. Everything becoming like this was a major dereliction of duty on his part. The Warhounds are destined to be destroyed. The Warhounds' planes will no longer be able to cause trouble. The Southern Summer Country will work with miracle commerce to conquer them. Everyone needs to quickly rebuild their homes. The Southern Summer people quickly comforted the refugees. The Meng Qingwu sisters, Nangong Yun, Vivian, and the others all revealed pained expressions, especially the emotional Meng Yinging. She simply did not dare believe that in just half a year, Imperial City had turned into a ghost city. The citizens were all skin and bones from starvation, living like lonely ghosts in the ruins. Was this the cruelty of war? Meng Yinging felt a strong sense of guilt. Southern Xia's northern side had fallen and the tens of millions of people were suffering, but she still lived a rich life, almost forgetting about this place. Thinking about it, if this world did not have Chu Tian, perhaps all of Southern Xia would not have been able to escape. How could she be any better than these people? Although it was not her responsibility, she still felt a strong sense of guilt. Meng Yinging pulled on Chu Tian's clothes. Let's help them rebuild the city. Chu Tian gave a slight nod. Rebuilding the homeland is easy, but defending it is hard. We need to take care of the northern side, only then can we prevent this matter from happening again. Meng Qingwu ordered Vivian to use the space warehouse to bring large amounts of medicine and supplies to the refugees, which could temporarily alleviate the urgent situation. The southern reinforcements would arrive in a few days, so there was no need to worry about this matter. They sat together for a meeting. The contents of this meeting were how to repair Southern Xia, how to deal with the prisoners, and how to clean up the northern prairies. The Warhounds King's strategy was very conservative, but strictly speaking, it was correct. The Warhounds madly enslaved humans to open up land, build forts, build ships, and make equipment. 1. They could accumulate strength, and 2. They could wait for the best time. The only thing they didn't expect was that Southern Xia was changing too quickly. Now the Warhounds' kingdom was finished. Southern Xia had captured at least 800,000 spirit beasts in the Imperial region, Song State, and Furnace State, including the 100,000 demon wolf cavalry from the Eagle Burial Kingdom. How to deal with these troops was a headache. According to reason, these were all evil invaders. They should have burned them all in the old Imperial City to vent the anger of the people and raise morale, but reason told everyone that this wasn't right. 60 to 70% of the prisoners were elites of the Warhounds' plains and the rest were sent by the Eagle Burial Kingdom. Now that they had betrayed the Eagle Burial Kingdom, if they could use them, this strength could become a barrier for the Southern Summer Country to defend against the Eagle Burial Kingdom's invasion in the north. Chu Tian once again gave his opinion. I think that when we return the Warhounds' plains, we can create a puppet regime in the Warhounds' plains and create a northern militant kingdom. We can only be assured if we control the plains in our hands. Prop up a puppet regime? The Southern Summer King agreed in his heart, but the possibility of it being implemented was not high. The Warhounds and the Southern Summer Country are old enemies. Is it easy to create a puppet regime? Actually, it's not hard. We can leave this matter to miracle commerce. Meng Qingwu began to plan. We have many experts in the forest, whether it is spirit beasts or other races, there are quite a few of them. We can send a few strong spirit beasts to establish a colonial power in the Warhounds' plains. Other than that, the shaman priest Luz, I think he should be very interested in developing his shaman religion on the plains. Chu Tian's eyes lit up. The Warhounds' plains is a natural fertile land for the shaman religion, and we have all seen the shaman sorcerer's methods. With Luz's ability and our miracle commerce's strength, it won't take long for those thorns to be controlled. Whether it is convincing or being controlled by goo insects, there are ways to make them kneel at our feet. That's right, we can imitate the Eagle Burial Kingdom's method and use their colonial power to rule the Warhounds' plains, using their faith to consolidate their rule. When we completely control the plains, whether it is the plains or miracle commerce, we can create a win-win situation. I think that as long as the tribes of the plains aren't stupid, They will give up on the Eagle Burial Kingdom and join us. The Southern Summer King saw that the two of them were filled with confidence, so he asked in a probing voice, "Are you confident?" Sending several 100,000 elites back to the plains, Southern Xia would have to bear a large risk. Southern Summer King doesn't need to worry, we just need to choose a suitable Northern Militant King and the Northern Militant Kingdom will be established in a few months. Chu Tian swept his eyes over the vast prairies. Right now our momentum is at its peak, so why don't we take back the ancestral lands of the Southern Summer Country? From now on, we'll call the country Great Summer. With this said, even the Southern Summer King with his calm personality revealed an excited expression. Gu Qianqiu and Yun Tianhe were filled with joy. The wish of Southern Xia was to take back their ancestral land and rebuild Great Summer. This goal was already right in front of them. Although the kingdom's current national strength and population did not live up to its name, with the kingdom's current potential and speed of development, the Great Summer Country's name was well-deserved. Chapter 457. Establishing a northern militant country puppet regime on the Warhounds Plains was not a spur-of-the-moment decision, rather it was a strategic decision made by Miracle City. Whether it was Chu Tian or Meng Qingwu, they both recognized a problem. Miracle Commerce was an outside power, so it was not an easy matter for them to expand in the Forest of Chaos. The Forest of Chaos was an endless civilized wilderness on the surface, but the seemingly barren wasteland was actually very complicated. The entire Forest of Chaos was filled with large amounts of hidden powers. Miracle Commerce was a subsidiary power of the Eternal Forest in name, but they did not have enough support from the Eternal Forest. They might not be able to feel it at the start, but before long, all the powers would come from all directions. It wasn't hard to foresee that Miracle Commerce would be hindered in the future. Not to mention expanding their territory to attack cities, even if they built factories, built barracks, or mined large amounts, it would attract the jealousy of others. Now they could use this chance to release a portion of their strength and resources and export them to the outside world to establish a power. Using Miracle Commerce's superiority in transportation, they would not be limited by space even if they were tens of thousands of miles away, allowing them to invest and expand. The Northern Militant Country puppet regime had a large significance. This would be an independent kingdom under Miracle Commerce's control. Meng Qingwu had studied the northern plains of the Southern Summer Country. This plains was very large, including the Imperial Region Plains, Song State Plains, and the Warhounds Plains. Moreover, it extended in all directions, covering an area of several tens of millions of square kilometers. It was like the borders of 4-5 kingdoms, so the natural foundation was not bad. It was just that the native spirit beasts were too stupid. The Warhounds Plains occupied 60% of the plains, spanning over 10,000 miles. The terrain was smooth and there were no natural barriers, so it could become the center of a region in the future. The Warhounds Plains was not a barren land. There were tens of millions of spirit beasts and hundreds of thousands of miles of fertile plains. Whether it was the population, soil, or resources, they all had a lot of value to develop. It was just that the stupid spirit beasts did not know how to develop it. Once the puppet regime was established on the Warhounds Plains, the Southern Xia side would also give them a large amount of support because the north was stable and the resources could be shared. This was in line with the Great Summer Country's core benefits. If the north and south were connected like this, they would not lose to a warring kingdom-level kingdom. And so it was happily decided. Chu Tian made a decision on the spot. Dongfang Haoran, you will be stationed on the Warhounds Plains front lines and stabilize the situation there. Luz will bring the shaman priests to the Warhounds Plains to spread the shaman religion. Arnold, you can think of a way to win over the Warhounds Plains. This land is very fertile. How much territory and people you can steal will all depend on your own abilities. Everyone was tempted, especially the orc Luz. Luz was the chief priest of Miracle City's shaman religion, and he knew that the Warhounds Plains was suitable for establishing the shaman religion. The large Warhounds tribes were poor, and now they were facing a bitter defeat, so it was the best time for a religion to invade. As long as Miracle Commerce provided material support, The Orthodox shaman religion would spread in this land. Only Luz was a bit worried. He hesitantly said, "Sir City Lord, although the prairies are good, it is too far from the forest. Although the transport tower can directly reach Central State, it will take several days to reach the Warhounds tribe from Central State. I'm afraid there won't be enough manpower." How could I not have thought of this problem? You can be assured, I won't be idle. From Central State to the Warhounds country, the distance is a bit big. For efficiency, I will build a transport tower in the northern militant country as soon as possible. In the future, the northern militant country's transport tower will connect to Miracle City's transport tower and you can go back and forth at any time. The tribe chiefs were overjoyed. This was truly a large piece of good news. If the prairies had a transport tower, what difference was there from Miracle City's back garden? Miracle City's people could come and go as they pleased. There was no need to worry about managing them like this. These tribal chiefs could freely recruit soldiers and buy horses in this region to establish their power. Everyone excitedly received their orders and left. The Warhounds Plains has a transport tower, so it will naturally be more convenient. Meng Qingwu asked with knit brows, "But we really can't take out the materials to build the transport tower." This was also the problem that gave Chu Tian a headache. There was the Eye of the Star, the core material for the transport tower. But there weren't enough spatial crystals to use at all. The known materials had already been used up by Chu Tian. How could this kind of rare material be easily obtained? There was no other choice. They could only search and do their best to search. Chu Tian said, "We'll split up and search. The young miss will be in charge of purchasing materials in the forest and I'll go to the north and other regions, searching in the markets of the surrounding large countries. I think there will be some harvests. I'll also use this chance to open up several markets for miracle commerce and inquire about the situation of the nearby kingdoms." The northern militant country's regime could not be established overnight. Miracle commerce did not lack money or resources. It was only a matter of time. Meng Qingwu brought people back to Miracle City. Miracle City was still full of things to do. They couldn't be without a leader for a long time. She was in a rush to deploy the smart brain and establish the city's intelligent management system. Chu Tian was very bored staying in the forest for several months. Using the excuse of purchasing materials and establishing the northern militant country's regime, he planned to take a look around the nearby countries, so he was not in a rush to return. Nangong, Vivian, and the others all had missions, so although they wanted to follow Chu Tian, they couldn't leave right now, so they could only obediently follow the young miss back to the city. 1 week later, the Southern Summer King, Dongfang, announced in the old imperial city that the country would be changed to Great Summer. The north had been heavily damaged and for the development of the kingdom, the Great Summer country made Central State City the new capital. Furnace State and Song State remained the same, but the imperial region and the lost land in the north were divided into 7 new states. The Great Xia Kingdom didn't have the intention to continue expanding to the north. They expanded to the south, west, and east. They occupied more desolate lands and established 3 more prefectures. The Great Xia Kingdom had a total of 16 prefectures and counties, which was more than double the original size. In terms of land area, the Great Xia Kingdom was already a large kingdom in name and in reality. The Great Summer King once again created marquises. The 3 southern and 3 northern states were all controlled by people who held important positions in miracle commerce and had a high status in the Great Summer country. For example, Dongfang Haoren, Gu Qianqiu, Yun Tianhe, as well as the Nangong family and Shangguan family. These 6 areas were made into special administrative areas by the Great Summer country. They were areas developed and managed by Miracle Commerce and the Great Summer country. They supported Miracle Commerce's factories, cities, and army training camps, and they did not collect any taxes at all. Other than that, the country guarding ruler Chu Tian was given the title of Great Summer Country Scholar, and the Yunmeng monarch Meng Qingwu was given the title of Great Summer Foreign Minister. Dongfang was very clear that the Great Summer country's prosperity could not be separated from Miracle Commerce, and Miracle Commerce needed the Great Summer country. The 2 of them were mutually beneficial in order to achieve a win-win situation. What was there to care about with a few more empty titles? Chu Tian had already said that even if the Southern Summer King's throne was given to him, he would not be interested, not to mention this kind of empty title. When the Great Summer Country held the title ceremony and National Day ceremony, he did not even attend. At this time, Chu Tian was bringing the two young and big beauties, galloping into the depths of the prairies. This was a business trip, so Chu Tian was not in a rush to finish his mission. He immediately brought Meng Yingying to have fun on the prairies. Meng Yingying was very happy playing. The prairie scenery was completely different. In this week, she had visited various ancient ruins and mixed into the nomadic tribes. She had seen the magnificent scene of 10,000 horses galloping. There were no external enemies or internal threats. She had Chu Tian by her side every day. They camped together and played together. This was simply one of the happiest moments of her life. On this day, as the sun set, Chu Tian and Meng Yingying were tired from playing. The two of them sat shoulder to shoulder on a ball of grass as they watched the sunset. The fiery red sunset dyed the entire sky red, and the prairie was also illuminated in a beautiful golden red color. This boundless and boundless grassland was truly enchanting and pleasing to the eye. Meng Yingying's hands were hugging her knees and the sunset dyed her white jade-like face red. She said in a casual voice, "Hey, Chu Tian, we've known each other for over a year. Have you forgotten to say something to me?" "Say what?" "You know it in your heart." Meng Yingying fiercely glared at him. "Humph, I'm telling you, you can't just leave this matter hanging. I'm almost an adult, so if you don't make a move, I won't wait for you." Chu Tian pretended to be stupid. "Yingying, what do you want to say? Why can't I understand anything at all?" The happy mood that Meng Yingying had accumulated over the past few days was suddenly destroyed by this damn fellow. She had already said it this clearly, but this fellow still pretended to be stupid. She gave an angry snort and stood up to leave. "Just wait to regret it. I'm ignoring you." Chu Tian gave a laugh. As soon as she turned around, he immediately reached out to grab her slender waist. You rogue." Meng Yingying's face turned as red as an apple. She struggled a few times and then half pushed and half leaned into his embrace. "You're bullying me. I'll go back and tell my elder sister." "Yingying, you're right. There are some things that can't be dilly-dallied." Chu Tian completely ignored Meng Yingying's threats. He closed his eyes and sniffed the fragrance coming from the girl's hair. "Let's get married." Meng Yingying felt her mind go blank. What was this bastard's brain thinking? The two of them hadn't even officially started dating yet, but he had already skipped this step. This fellow's way of thinking was hard to accept. Meng Yingying found that she could never keep up with this bastard's thinking. You're not willing?" Chu Tian let go and said with a shrug, "Then forget it." No. "I didn't say I'm not willing, don't misunderstand." Meng Yingying quickly shouted, but then felt that it was a bit inappropriate. This is a bit too rushed. Also, what about elder sister and the others? It was a bit inappropriate to bring this up at this time. Chu Tian's brows immediately knit together. Although there were many beautiful women by his side and they were all very outstanding in comparison, he had known Yingying the longest, so his feelings for her were the purest. The young miss was a great beauty with peerless talent. It was impossible for any normal man not to be moved. The amount of time that Chu Tian spent with the young miss, their interactions and their feelings were not less than Yingying's, but it was more of a cooperative relationship between colleagues and friends, so it wasn't as natural and sincere as when he was with Yingying. Chu Tian couldn't say who was better, but he felt the most comfortable with Yingying. "Humph, I'm not blind, this problem can't be avoided. Elder sister definitely likes you." Meng Yingying indignantly said, "There's also Nangong, Vivian, and the others. Even if they don't have that kind of feeling for you, they still worship you and most likely don't have the ability to resist you. I really don't know what's so good about a fellow like you. You have so many problems, but you can still seduce so many women." He really couldn't see it. This little lass was quite perceptive. Chu Tian said with a helpless face, "It's my fault that my charm is too high. I'm actually very low-key. I swear to the heavens, I've never taken the initiative to seduce anyone." Meng Yingying gave an unhappy snort. There was no rigid monogamy on the continent. No matter if it was a man or woman, as long as they were outstanding enough, it wasn't strange for them to have multiple partners. It could even be considered a normal matter. Ying admitted that she was a bit narrow-minded, but she wasn't a stingy person. What made her confused and annoyed was her inferiority complex. That's right. It was inferiority complex. This inferiority complex didn't just come from Chu Tian's excellence, which made her feel that her birth was ordinary and her talent was mediocre, but it also came from a series of strong competitors. Her elder sister, Nangong, and Vivian, each one of them was outstanding. They had strong abilities, good talent, and high birth. These people had a good relationship with her and she didn't reject them, but there was a sense of crisis deep in her heart. She felt that she wasn't as good as any one of them. It was because of this that the lazy and playful Ying had completely changed over the past year. She did her best to stay up late and study, working hard to invent the canned food, help develop the space warehouse, help create the spiritual illusion, and etc. Ying was different from her elder sister Meng Qingwu. She didn't have any ambitions, she just wanted to catch up. Stupid girl, there really is something wrong with your brain. What are you thinking about all these random things for? Chu Tian could feel the girl's complex and contradictory feelings. He revealed a faint smile and used his hand to support her beautiful face. The Ying I like will always be unique and no one can compare to you. After saying this, he slightly lowered his head and kissed the girl's tender lips. Under the beautiful setting sun, the two of them tightly hugged each other. Chapter 458. Meng Ying was stunned for a few seconds and her blurred eyes became hazy. She didn't resist and slowly closed her eyes. A crystal-clear tear came out from the corner of her eye. It was tears of joy. It was strange to say. Before Meng Ying met Chu Tian, she couldn't understand the matters of love. Ever since this fellow Chu Tian appeared in her life, her heart was immediately occupied by this fellow. This was the first time she had fallen in love with someone. Was this the so-called love at first sight? This fellow was clearly bad and he often made her angry. She didn't know why, but she couldn't escape his shadow in her life. No matter what time or situation. As long as she was with Chu Tian, she would feel very happy and satisfied. Whether it was eating, sleeping, or even breathing, she would think of him. She felt like there was an invisible string connected to the other side and no matter where she went, she couldn't forget that thought. If she didn't see him for a day, she would feel incomparably empty. Meng Ying was clear in her heart that Chu Tian had a good impression of her. She didn't have much confidence in herself and this moment had come too suddenly, making Meng Ying feel at a loss. She didn't know how to react at this moment. Forget it, she would just give up. Coo! There was a light cough. Chen Bingyu appeared on the small hill like a ghost. Although her face was covered and her expression couldn't be seen, her eyes were still staring at the two of them. Her eyes were filled with a complex and strange light as she said in her usual indifferent voice, "I'm really sorry, I've disturbed you." Meng Ying quickly jumped up like a frightened rabbit. "Big Sister Bingyu, it's not like this, it's all his fault. This woman who came and went like a ghost, she actually ruined my good matter. Can you not be so exaggerated? We are in a relationship, not having an affair." Chu Tian casually pulled her over. "Big Sister Bing, you came at the right time. I've already decided to marry Ying, shouldn't you celebrate?" Chen Bingyu's expression didn't change at all. "I really must congratulate you." Meng Ying couldn't take it anymore. She put her hands on her hips and shouted, "Hey, you hooligan, did I agree? You're just talking nonsense." "What? You don't agree?" "I didn't say that I don't agree. Yes, I just feel that we're not that old, there's no rush." "No, it's not that there's no rush, it's just." Meng Ying started to speak incoherently. The more she spoke, the redder her face became. In the end, she lowered her head and muttered, "We have to pick a suitable time and opportunity. It won't be good if we're abrupt like this." Chu Tian grinned and wanted to tease him a little more. "I think that this kind of thing should be discussed in private." Chen Bingyu didn't seem to want to watch anymore. Luz has made some progress, he needs to take some time out of his busy schedule to deal with it. Meng Yingying seemed to have finally found a chance to escape. She quickly seized the opportunity and asked, "What's going on? Isn't Luz preparing to establish the shaman religion on the prairies? How could he encounter trouble?" Chen Bingyu replied, "There are several large nomadic tribes in the western part of the prairies that have collapsed. It should be because of the battle with southern Xia that drained their savings, and adding in the beast plague that caused the beasts to die, it finally caused the entire tribe to collapse, forming a large number of refugees. Luz hopes to absorb them and establish his influence like this." Understood. The Warhound's plains were already empty due to internal strife, and they had been fighting with southern Xia for over half a year. The large tribe's lives were unspeakably bitter, and there were many people who didn't have food to eat. It was because the Warhound's tribes were in a difficult situation that gave Chu Tian the chance to occupy this area. The collapse of several tribes had formed a large number of refugees. Wasn't this a good time for the church to spread their teachings? Luz hoped that Chu Tian could use Miracle Commerce's space warehouse to transport enough food to help these refugees. "Let's dress up before we go." Chu Tian's name was not famous in a barbaric place like the Warhound's plains, but Chu Tian and Meng Yingying were humans in the end. The Warhounds and humans had been mortal enemies for thousands of years, so if they interfered as humans, it would not be good for them. After half a day, the three of them found Luz. The disguise of the three of them was not complicated. They just put on a large and bulky robe and put on masks and gloves, not revealing any part of their bodies. Finally, they used some kind of medicine to change their human scent. Luz respectfully cupped his hands to Chu Tian, "Sir City Lord." Chu Tian sized up the surrounding situation. Other than the shaman priests led by Luz, there were several forest chiefs who were maintaining order. There were around 40–50,000 refugees gathered. This scale was enough to form a medium to large tribe on the Warhound's plains. From the current situation, this number could still increase. All of these people were sick, starving, and emaciated to the point of being skin and bones. They didn't seem like vicious plunderers at all. They were simply a group of homeless stray dogs. "The shaman god will guide any stray spirit beasts. Now let me see your pain." Chu Tian's voice was hoarse and deep, like he had used a voice-changing technique. He first looked at the tens of thousands of Warhound's refugees that were filled with longing and spoke a lot of comforting words in the spirit beast language. Then he began to examine their bodies. Other than being hungry, these people were also suffering from a very serious disease. This was a very malignant parasitic disease. Once it entered the host's body, it would wildly multiply. First it would nest in the stomach, then it would invade the internal organs, and finally it would enter the bloodstream. It would wildly absorb spirit energy and energy, finally torturing the host to death. Moreover, contact was very contagious. One person would fall sick and the people they came into contact with would not be able to escape. There was no cure for it in the Warhound's plains. Defeat, famine, and a contagious disease. These grandsons were truly unlucky. Chu Tian pretended to be mysterious and said a few prayers to the shaman god before leaving this place to make preparations. "What do we do? I think their illness isn't light." Meng Yingying lifted her hood and immediately said, "We have several large warehouses in Central State that have canned food. I'll contact someone to send it over." "No, we won't use canned food this time." Chu Tian wrote down several recipes and a list. "Send these to the Central State Laboratory and have them refine the medicine according to this method." Meng Yingying did not understand alchemy, but Yingying had made quite a bit of progress in the past year. She found that these were all very cheap herbs, but since Chu Tian did not say anything, this matter should be easily taken care of. She immediately took out the communication device to contact Central State and had them quickly do it. 3 days later, the number of starving people had doubled and they couldn't hold on much longer. Chu Tian pulled over 10 large beast carriages and each beast carriage was filled with large boxes. The shaman priests let out a sigh of relief when they saw this and quickly shouted out, "Long live the shaman god," causing the starving Warhound citizens to loudly cheer. Luz revealed a confused expression. Why were there 10 carriages? There were already over 100,000 starving people here. Now that the news of the shaman religion helping the refugees had spread, perhaps there would be more refugees coming. How many people could eat with 10 beast carriages? It wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between the teeth of these people. Open it. What appeared in these boxes was not food as he had imagined. Instead, it was potions that had been stored in small jars. This is the divine water bestowed by the shaman god. Chu Tian began to boast again. This divine water can alleviate your illnesses and create large amounts of food for you to pass through. This time it wasn't just Lu's, everyone's face was filled with shock. It was fine if the medicine could cure illnesses, but could it be used to fill one's stomach? Chu Tian took out a large bronze cauldron engraved with runes from the gourd. This bronze cauldron was a sacrificial tool used by the church, so it added a mysterious color to it. The shaman god said that everything in this world can be redeemed. Chu Tian said to everyone, "Now I ask everyone to send the grass into the cauldron." The shaman god's divine power will turn the fresh grass into food. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. How was this possible? Luz was filled with doubts, but he was afraid of being seen through, so he couldn't directly ask. He could only help by shouting, "Everyone follow the envoy's words. The shaman god will not lie to his believers." There wasn't much grass. There was as much grass as he wanted. The large cauldron was filled with bright green grass in less than 10 minutes. Chu Tian activated the source energy array engraved on the cauldron, and a surge of energy came from the cauldron. It was like all the grass had been thrown into a grass grinder and was immediately compressed into a large paste. Chu Tian acted as if he was a ghost and poured a bottle of medicine inside. In the end, an incredible thing happened. The paste quickly changed and finally turned into a kind of dry food. It was like it was made from baked grain, and it released an alluring fragrance. Chu Tian sent a palm at the cauldron. The dry rations were all ejected out, scattering among the refugees like a fairy scattering flowers. These refugees had long been starving, and when they smelled the alluring fragrance, they all rushed forward in a frenzy to snatch it. They were extremely hungry, and even if it was shit, as long as they could survive, they would eat it. But what was hard to believe was that the dry food made from grass not only filled their stomachs, it also tasted quite good. The most important thing was that when this dry food entered their stomachs, they could clearly feel their bodies quickly recovering. A miracle. This really is a miracle. The warhound spirit beasts all kneeled down in worship. Wasn't this a miracle? Why did the warhounds invade southern summer time and time again? Wasn't it to survive? If even the cheapest grass could be turned into dry food, then the life of the warhound's spirit beasts and the warhound's plains would have a large change. You can all see it. Chu Tian loudly shouted, "The shaman god has turned grass into food. Now the entire warhounds and the entire prairies are food. This food can not only solve your hunger, it can also cure your illnesses. This is a gift from the great shaman god. You won't have to suffer from famine anymore." Luz was filled with admiration towards Chu Tian. If a few hundred tons of canned food were transported here, although the problem could be solved, the cost would be relatively high, and the effect would not be as good. However, he came up with such an unprecedented method, turning grass into food. Just this cauldron alone in this period of time, how many followers could the shaman religion attract? This move was just too beautiful. Chapter 459. Luz said in a grateful voice, "It's all thanks to Sir City Lord's help that several 100,000 people have gathered over the past 2 days. I think most of them can become shaman believers. We will pick out talented people to train into shaman sorcerers to work for the City Lord. The shaman religion originated from the spirit beast's religion, so there is a high chance of success in this area. With Miracle Commerce's support and the Forest of Chaos experts' help, if you can't succeed," Chu Tian looked at him, "don't come back to see me, just go eat shit and commit suicide." Luz wiped his sweat. Yes, we will definitely succeed." There was no problem with the warhound planes. The transport tower couldn't be delayed any longer. At this time, the great summer king Dongfang Gon contacted Chu Tian. He had already prepared the map and information of the various countries and also wanted Chu Tian's help. He hoped that Chu Tian could make a trip to the Great Summer northern capital. The Great Summer imperial city was moved to the central state. The former imperial city had been renamed the northern capital, and although it wasn't the capital, it was still several hundred years old and was the #1 city in the north. When they announced their independence as the Great Summer Kingdom, all kinds of trouble came. A large kingdom was not just a name. Once they became a large kingdom, their diplomatic rank would be higher than a small kingdom's. The surrounding small kingdoms would even need to pay taxes to the large kingdoms. There weren't many interactions between countries in this era. Unless it was a subordinate kingdom or a vassal kingdom, there were no geopolitical considerations. However, if there were several powers appearing in the same area, it would affect the interests and influence of those with benefits. The Warhound's kingdom was a subordinate kingdom of the Eagle Burial Kingdom. There was no other way. The Great Summer Country was an independent kingdom. How could it be easy for them to become a large kingdom? The surrounding countries all had opinions about the Great Summer Country, but these small kingdoms had limited abilities, so there was no need to care about them. What they needed to do now was to take care of the strong kingdoms. This did not conflict with Chu Tian's mission. Chu Tian wanted to find the incomparably precious spatial crystal, so he couldn't just run to the small kingdoms to look for it, right? Since it was like this, he would just do it. After obtaining the map and the relevant information, Chu Tian began his visit as a Great Summer Country's kingdom scholar. I still don't understand. Meng Yingying was sitting on the airship. How did you turn the weeds into food? These are clearly just weeds. Why do they have the ability to treat illnesses? Actually, it's not hard to explain. The Warhound Plains soil is very fertile and contains a lot of spiritual energy. The grass can raise the beasts on the plains, which means it contains a lot of energy, but humans and demon beasts have different body structures, so they can't absorb it. Chu Tian paused for a bit before continuing. I only used medicine and source energy arrays to make the grass easier to absorb. It can indeed fill one's stomach and maintain one's life, but it's not very nutritious, so it's not suitable for long-term consumption. Meng Yingying showed an expression of understanding. So, the food can cure the disease because the antidote was mixed into the medicine? There are times when you aren't stupid. Pooh pooh pooh, you're the stupid one. The two of them sat on the airship, chatting and playing. Chen Bingyu sat cross-legged beside them, holding a cup of tea, not saying a word. Meng Yingying was tired of playing with Chu Tian. Where are we preparing to go? Chu Tian opened a large map with the Warhound Plains as the center. There were countries all around the Warhound Plains, with 3-4 small kingdoms in the north. Only these small kingdoms had smaller territories and populations than southern Xia, so they had already been annexed to the Eagle Burial Kingdom. So, to the north of these small kingdoms, there was a large kingdom territory. Although the map couldn't depict the entire Eagle Burial Kingdom, just a part of it was like Mount Tai was pressing down on the north. The Eagle Burial Kingdom was a spirit beast warring kingdom and the only warring kingdom nearby. The Eagle Burial Kingdom and the Eagle Burial Kingdom's sphere of influence, Chu Tian had no interest at all. Because of the chaos of war, it was hard for these places to have a mature market, so it was unlikely he could find the materials he wanted. Chu Tian's eyes looked over all the large and small kingdoms around the Warhound's Plains, finally falling on a country in the southwest corner that wasn't small. This country was long and narrow, not being big, but it was a place where several earth veins intersected, so it must be rich in resources. When Chu Tian saw the name of the country, he immediately thought of the bronze-masked old man he met in the Central State black market. Looking around, there are only a few large kingdoms. This is one. There hasn't been any large disturbances in several hundred years. Although the country isn't large, it is rich in resources, so the country's strength should be very strong. This is a large kingdom that is more worthy of its name than the Warhound's Kingdom or the newly formed Great Summer Country. Let's go there. What is the name of its country? Great Shou Country. Meng Yingying and Chu Tian didn't have any reactions. Chen Bingyu, who had been sitting quietly, suddenly trembled and the cup in her hand fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. Meng Yingying asked in a strange voice, "What's wrong with elder sister Bingyu?" Chen Bingyu realized that she had forgotten herself. "No, it's nothing." Meng Yingying's face was filled with confusion and Chu Tian also saw it. Chen Bingyu was hiding some secrets. This woman's background was not normal, and it was even possible that she wasn't a person from southern Xia. From her reaction, could she be related to the Great Zhou country? The Great Zhou country wasn't much larger than the southern summer country, but because of its strange shape, it was like a long snake twisting and turning. It allowed it to have direct or indirect contact with the Eagle Burial Kingdom, the Warhounds Plains, the southern summer country, and even the Forest of Chaos. In the ancient era, the Great Zhou country was a very prosperous land, so there were many precious inheritances and ruins left behind. The Great Zhou country was built on the inheritances of their ancestors, so there were many sects in the Great Zhou country, all kinds of inheritances clashing with each other. This was a country of sects. There was no fixed royal family or noble class. It was mainly the sects that ruled the country. The Great Zhou country was a relatively close neighbor and also the strongest one. When Chu Tian visited the Great Zhou country as a great summer country scholar, it would be best if he could form an alliance with the Great Zhou country. The Eagle Burial Kingdom dominated the north, always being a threat. If the Great Summer and Great Zhou countries joined together and supported the Northern Militant Kingdom as the vanguard, it wouldn't be hard to resist the Eagle Burial Kingdom. At least they could keep them in the north and not allow them to go south. Of course, it was hard to say if the Great Zhou country would give Chu Tian face. The airship flew tens of thousands of meters in the air. It was unknown how many deserts and plains they passed, but they finally left the Great Summer country and the Great Prairies. Ancient cities and buildings appeared in their sights. The world was big and there were all kinds of strange things. Even if they were human countries, their customs were all different. The Great Zhou country's powers were hidden deep in the mountains, and the sects were built in sects rarely visited blessed lands. On the contrary, the power gathered in the secular world was not strong, and most of the cities were just representatives of sects in the secular world. They farmed elixirs and raised spirit beasts, finally needing to pay tribute to the large sects, using this method to obtain protection. They arrived at the Heavenly Yin Mountain. The Heavenly Yin Mountain was one of the Great Zhou country's 8 famous mountains, and it was said to be one of the most ancient ruins. One of the Great Zhou country's 6 large sects, the Black Moon sect, a sect that had existed for thousands of years. The surrounding large and small cities were all built around the Heavenly Yin Mountain, belonging to the Black Moon sect's outer sect. Each city in the Black Moon sect's sphere of influence was the Black Moon sect's property. If there wasn't the Black Moon sect protecting them, these people wouldn't be able to survive here. Because of this, the people of the Heavenly Yin Mountain treated the Black Moon sect as their highest duty. Most people would choose to join the Black Moon sect's outer sect as an outer sect disciple. If their talent was good enough, they could enter the Heavenly Yin Mountain and become an inner sect disciple of the Black Moon sect, obtaining the Black Moon sect's thousands of years of inheritance. The Great Summer country used states as geographical units. The Great Zhou country used mountain gates as geographical units. This was very interesting. In order not to attract too much attention, Chu Tian decided to ride a normal griffin to discuss the situation. Although he was the Great Summer country's official envoy, meeting the Great Zhou country's king was a very troublesome matter. Wah, a griffin. It's actually a griffin. Chu Tian brought Chen Bingyu and Meng Yingying to a place called Yin Gathering City, which should be one of the largest cities near the Heavenly Yin Mountain. What made the 3 of them feel strange was that when they rode a griffin here, it immediately caused a stir. It was like the Yin Gathering City citizens had never seen such a high-level mount before. Meng Yingying was puzzled. The Great Zhou country is a large country. Why is a level 2 flying mount making such a big fuss out of nothing? The Great Zhou country's peak strength is concentrated in the large mountain gates. Chen Bingyu said in a low voice, "These secular cities only have a few outer sect powers, they aren't that strong." The Great Zhou country's strength was not evenly distributed. This was also a characteristic of sects like the Great Zhou country. Chu Tian didn't care. When he was prepared to inquire about the situation, the crowd suddenly separated and a large group of black armored guards charged out. The one leading them was a large fatty wearing a jade robe. "What sect are you from?" This embroidered clothed fatty first looked at the griffin with a greedy gaze, then his gaze fell on Meng Yingying. He couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise and joy, but his tone was very arrogant. Without notifying, why did you charge into the heavenly Een mountains? Chu Tian didn't come to cause trouble, so he cupped his hands and said, I am a great summer country scholar. I came to visit a famous mountain in the Great Zhou country, may I ask? Great summer country? You're talking about the small country that was beaten half to death by the spirit beasts in the southeast? After this, Fatty understood where Chu Tian's group came from. His attitude became even more disdainful. These people looked very young and they came from a small country, so they should be some young master or young miss that didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth to come here. I am an outer sect elder of the Black Moon sect and a deacon of Een Gathering City. You trespassed into the heavenly Een mountain. This is already breaking the rules. Leave this griffin and use it as a tribute to the Black Moon sect. Meng Yingying was enraged. It's been a long time since someone dared to bully us. This was intolerable. Fatty, why are you so unreasonable? Humph, this is the rule. A griffin, no problem, no problem. Chu Tian patted Meng Yingying's shoulder as he comforted her. With his status, he didn't care about a level 2 demon beast. This esteemed elder, can you introduce me to a high-level member of the Black Moon sect? The fatty was a bit surprised. This brat just gave out a level 2 griffin like this? This griffin was worth at least 20 low-grade source stones. Could he have met a group of prodigal children? My Black Moon sect is one of the famous sects of the Great Zhou country. How could a nameless rat like you have the qualifications to visit us? Don't think that a single griffin can open the Black Moon sect's gates. However, if you're sincere, I can give you a chance. Fatty revealed a sinister expression. Recently, I've been cultivating a strange dual cultivation technique. If you can lend me your female companion, I might be happy and agree. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.